Okay, let's just get into book club. Everyone get your variety of drinks, your snacks. Prepare yourself. We are going down to the underworld. Yeah, someone on mobile can just post the bingo, and then you guys can play bingo. And if anybody gets a bingo, I don't know, we'll give Peg a carrot. That's what we'll do. If we ever get a bingo, every time there's a bingo, we'll get a carrot. Peg will get a carrot. Or part of a carrot. Protein cereal is good. Yes, everyone gets your snacks, get your drinks. If you are going to be doing an activity, you may, begin or do your activity. If you've got your book and you're following along, whichever copy, translation you have, we are in book 11. Cue the Hadestown soundtrack. Yeah. Exactly. Wondering why we build the wall, guys. No. Build the wall to keep us free. Oh, I'm so glad we've got a whole bunch. We've got quite a few first timers to the live. We are extremely happy to have you. Welcome to the chaos. Water bottle is filled. Everybody's getting ready. We're going to the kingdom of the dead, the haunted house of Hades. As we remember, book 10. If we achieve giving Peg enough carrots, maybe give Matt a carrot. Yeah. All I hear are screams. Actually, not really. The underworld's generally a pretty quiet place, which is interesting. Apollo played. Oh, I gave Mary the chance for a Beyonce reference. So we know in book 10 we spent time with Circe. We have basically stayed a year on Aeaea, which is Circe's island, and she said, okay, yeah, you're ready to go. You need to go talk to this dead guy. And this dead guy we're going to meet is Tiresias. We'll talk a bit about him when his name first gets mentioned. She goes, and he's going to tell you basically not only how to get home, but kind of what awaits you. Because the whole thing is that if you can recall even further back to book 9, when we were in the Polyphemus encounter, I had made a point of saying the whole thing of where Odysseus adopts this persona of anonymity, where he becomes autist, no one, no man. The way that he uses his craft and survives the Cyclops cave, and the way that he goes about it, basically he is leaving his kleos behind. He's abandoning it, right? And it's because all of his kleos up to this point has been tied to his metis, tied to his craft. And that is also tied to his exploits at Troy. Think about it, the biggest thing he did at Troy was the Trojan horse. It was this great moment of craftiness, right? But in order to escape Polyphemus, he has to become autist. He has to become no one. He needs to shed all of that. So he's left a bit adrift. So when we get him on Circe's island, we talk about they're weeping. They seem kind of turned around. And he's... Picture selections of the wall are popping off, though. Oh my God, excellent. We have that he doesn't really know who he is. It's part of why he kind of languishes for a year on Circe's island. He sort of doesn't really know what to do, and his men have to really convince him, like, come on, you're Odysseus, it's time to go home. We've been here a year. We've rested more than enough. And what he's going to have to do is go down to the underworld. Now, those who are familiar... We've mentioned Joseph Campbell, I think, before, but if you don't know Joseph Campbell, he's really famous for a book called Hero of a Thousand Faces. If you know anything about what's known as the monomyth or the hero's journey, right? It's a very famous sort of like plot and story structure. Very classic. If you ever want a perfect representation that follows Joseph Campbell's idea of what the hero's journey is, front to back, you watch the first ever Star Wars movie. A New Hope, Episode 4. Because George Lucas very specifically looked at that blueprint and said, I'm following it basically to the letter. It's a very classic mode of storytelling. And part of that does involve, as they say, descending, as they would say, like the descent into hell. Basically descending down into Hades. You must sort of die and be reborn, whether that be literally or it be figuratively. Now, in this case, we are going to have Odysseus going down to the underworld. He's going down to the land of the dead. Star Wars mentioned and I am summoned. I know, right? So book 11 here, the kingdom of the dead, we're going to see this theme that exists in the Odyssey, that is this idea of returning to light, returning to life. Ever read She Who Runs with Wolves? I have not. We're going to see that really come to the front in this book in particular, because this is our foray down into the land of the dead. Um, and from this descent into, death, if you will, he must re-emerge. And he's going to re-emerge as a hero whose kleos is then tied to the completion of his nostos. So he has thrown away, essentially, the old hero must die, so the new hero must come out. So the old Odysseus, who was known for his metis, known for his craft, has died, essentially, was stripped away in the Cyclop cave, and he kind of had to go through the land of the dead to come back out and say, I am a hero whose kleos is now tied to my nostos, right? If that makes any sense, hopefully. I just wanted to get that out of the way first, because I really didn't know where else to kind of put it. Yes, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, you will find the hero's journey permeates a lot of storytelling. It's part of why Joseph Campbell had called it the monomyth. His sort of idea of like this one story that humanity tells over and over and over and over again, just with sort of variations on some of the theming. Iliad is the story of death of a bachelor. More like death of a bachelor is the story of the Iliad. One came first. But okay, let's get into book 11. Let's go on a tour of dead Greek myth figures. Book 11, The Kingdom of the Dead. Now down we came to the ship at the water's edge. We hauled and launched her into the sunlit breakers first, stepped the mast in the black craft, and set our sail, and loaded the sheep aboard, the ram and you. Then we ourselves embarked, streaming tears, our heart weighed down with anguish. But Circe, the awesome nymph with lovely braids, who speaks with human voice, sent us a hardy shipmate. Yes, a fresh following wind ruffling up in our wake, bellying out our sail to drive our blue prow on as we, securing the running gear from stem to stern, sat back while the wind and helmsman kept her true on course. The sail stretched taut as she cut the sea all day, and the sun sank, and the roads of the world grew dark. And she made the outer limits, the ocean river's bounds, where Cimmerian people have their homes, their realm and city shrouded in mist and cloud. Okay, so the ocean river's bounds. This is also known as Oceanus. This is the great river that the Greeks believed surrounds the world, and it is also the Titan Oceanus himself, and he is the one who rules these waters. So Oceanus, as I said, is a Titan. He's a son of Uranos and Gaia. He's the husband of another Titan known as Tethys. And he's the father of both all the Oceanids, these nymphs we've mentioned several times, as well as the various sort of river gods in Greek mythology. So remember, when we talk about a river, we're usually talking about both the god and kind of the river itself. In this case, Oceanus is both Oceanus the Titan, the god, and this river that sort of, for the Greeks, their ideas encircles the world. It is the edges of the world, the outer limits of kind of the mortal world, the known world. So Hesiod, in his Theogony, I believe, not only notes that Oceanus is the eldest of all the Titans, but also says that, you want to know how many children he had? I mean, I said he fathered all the Oceanids. He says he fathered old man of the sea that Menelaus met would be a son of Oceanus, like ultimately kind of related. Yes. Any conflict specifically between him and Poseidon, or are they completely distinct? No conflict between him and Poseidon. They are distinct. So does that mean Poseidon has the bigger sea god than Poseidon is the sea god. If you give me a sec, Oceanus is said to be the source of all sources of water, both salt and fresh water. So like Oceanus is sort of the top of the pyramid, if you think about it that way, but he's not an Olympian. And Oceanus is more about creating this boundary. But Poseidon would have been probably more readily worshipped because he's an Olympian, but they're both extremely powerful. So yes, it is said he fathered the Oceanids, of which it is said there were 3,000, and as well as all of the river gods, of which they said 3,000. I would say it's not quite Apollo, Helios, Poseidon, Oceanus because you're talking Titans and Olympians. I mean, maybe, again, the Romans might try to conflate them later. So is Oceanus the father of Styx? I believe he is. Yes. We talked about Styx further back. I believe we said that is who her father was. I could be wrong, but yes, Styx is part of the river, comes from Oceanus. So you want to know why we say specifically 3,000? Like, man, where did Hesiod come out with that number? Like, that's a pretty specific number. That was pretty much his way of saying innumerable. There are innumerable bodies of water. There were innumerable oceanic nymphs. Like, there's tons of them. They're all over the place. I mean, how many have we mentioned just in the Odyssey alone, going through all the books? Quite a handful. So it's essentially his way of saying Oceanus, you know, being the source of all these different types of waters, he's had innumerable children. Yeah, oh boy, it's a lot. Yes, Styx is a child of Oceanus and Tethys. Now, both Homer and Hesiod basically say that Oceanus exists at the ends of the earth. Now, in the Theogony, Hesiod says it's near Tartarus. In the Iliad, Homer says Oceanus is near the Elysian fields. And as we say here in the Odyssey, Oceanus is what essentially kind of must be crossed in order to reach the house of Hades, in order to reach this underworld. So really, Oceanus, this river that they believe encircles the world, is essentially this boundary. It is the outer edges of the known world for them, and beyond which the world, the cosmos, like everything about your reality will become even more wild and more fantastical. It's, yeah, again, essentially we're defining the limits of the known world. That's what Oceanus also represents, really, for the Greeks, which is why it's always placed at kind of the outer edges and the limits. So we are crossing Oceanus to get towards the underworld. Now, the Cimmerians or the Cimmerians, I'm not really sure if I should be using a hard or a soft C here, who we mention here. Now, I had to look it up because I actually didn't know who these people were, but the Cimmerians apparently are this Eastern, Ironic, sort of like nomadic horse people who were culturally like the Scythians, but were considered separate enough from them that eventually Scythia and the Scythian cultures and the Scythian people are going to ultimately displace and sort of replace these Cimmerians. Essentially similar to how you get to the idea of like Ethiopia, which we encountered in the first book. This is sort of the idea of like an exotic people, exotic, you know, lands, these places that exist on the edges of sort of their understanding of the world. So when we talk about like the Cimmerians, we're saying like we're at the edges of the world, like kind of the exotic people who live out here. Have we started? We just started Birchwood. We are basically on we're nearing line 20. So here we go. Their city and shrouded in mist and cloud. I've gone down the Scythian rabbit. Oh, okay, there we go, Book Dragon. If you've got any more info on the Scythians you want to drop in there, please feel free. I just did a real quick glance because they were related to this group of people, but I didn't drop too far down into the rabbit hole. The eye of the sun can never flash his rays through the dark and bring them light. Not when he climbs the starry skies or when he wheels back down from the heights to touch the earth once more. An endless, deadly night overhangs those wretched men. There, gaining that point, we beached our craft, and herding out the sheep, we picked our way by the ocean's banks until we gained the place that Circe made our goal. Here at the spot, Paramedes and Eurylochus held the victims fast, and I, drawing my sharp sword from beside my hip, cut a trench of about a forearm's depth and length, and around it poured libations out to all the dead. First, with milk and honey, and then with mellow wine, then water, third and last, and sprinkled glistening barley over it all. And time and again I vowed to all the dead, to the drifting, listless spirits of their ghosts, that once I returned to Ithaca I would slaughter a barren heifer in my halls, the best I had, and load a pyre with treasures, and to Tiresias alone apart I would offer a sleek, black ram, the pride of all my herds. And once my vows and prayers had invoked the nations of the dead, I took the victims, and over the trench I cut their throats, and the dark blood flowed in. and up out of Erebus they came, blocking toward me now the ghosts of the dead and gone. Erebus being like darkness. So you're saying like they're coming out of this unfathomable darkness because they're all dead. We're in the land of the dead. Erebus is a primordial deity, older than even the Titans. You can learn more about Erebus reading the Theogony. I totally forgot we had mentioned it here. Brides and unwed youths, and old men who had suffered much, and girls with their tender hearts freshly scarred by sorrow, and great armies of battle dead, stabbed by bronze spears. Men of war still wrapped in bloody armor, thousands swarming around the trench from every side. Unearthly cries, blanching terror gripped me. I ordered the men at once to flay the sheep that lay before us, killed by my ruthless blade, and burn them both, and then say prayers to the gods, to the almighty god of death, and dread Persephone. But I, the sharp sword drawn from beside my hip, sat down on alert there, and never let the ghosts of the shambling, shipless dead come near that blood till I had questioned Tiresias myself. But first, the ghost of Elpenor, my companion, came toward me. He'd not been buried under the wide ways of earth, not yet. We'd left his body in Circe's house, unwept, unburied. This other labor pressed us. Why does Fagel refer to the animals being sacrificed as victims instead of sacrifices? Oh, that's a really great question. Is this on the bingo? Is friend of the show, Gregory Nagia, mentioned as bingo? Because if he's not, he should be. I can't remember. I looked at the bingo this morning. I died and nobody noticed. So, I'm going to see if I can find the page because I think I actually have it here. Because Gregory Nagia talks about this. It's not just Fagels. This is done very specifically by Homer because he's trying to sort of draw a comparison in a way between these animal sacrifices and the deaths of heroes that often happen. It's pretty wild. You see it even more in the Iliad, especially because we have way more deaths in the Iliad. Like, wow, do we have so many more deaths. And let me find this because there's a really cool bit in this book about that. And I can't remember where exactly it is. I don't think it's here. It's not about timing. It's not about recall. It might have been back on stuff about hero cults because it ties into also this idea of like hero. Oh, here we go. Okay. Nadia is not on the bingo. That's sad. Okay, here we go. Okay. This, it is here. It's on his introduction to Homeric poetry. So I'm going to read a bit. There is broad cultural evidence suggesting that hero worship in ancient Greece was not created out of the stories like that of Iliad and Odyssey, but was in fact independent of them. The stories, on the other hand, were based on the religious practices, though not always directly. There are even myths that draw into an explicit parallel the violent death of a hero and the sacrificial slaughter of an animal. For example, the description of the death of the hero Patroclus in the Iliad parallels in striking detail the stylized description documented elsewhere in Homeric poetry, specifically the third book of the Odyssey, of the slaughter of a sacrificial heifer. So the whole thing is that they're both described as victims because Homer's deliberately drawing parallels between the slaughter of heroes or other characters to the slaughter of these animals, because there is something almost ritualistic about it. Let's see. They describe this. For another example, we may consider an ancient Greek vase painting that depicts the same heroic warrior Patroclus in the shape of a sacrificial lamb laying supine with its legs in the air and its throat slit open. Evidence also places these practices of hero worship and animal sacrifice precisely during the era when the stories of the Iliad and Odyssey took shape. And let's see. What sacrificial scenes we do find in the epics are markedly stylized. In real sacrifice, the parts of the animal victim's body correspond to the members of the body politic. Basically, Peg is the free space. Yes, it's true. So, Clover, that's a great question. And basically to say the reason Fagles describes them as victims is because Homer's making direct parallels throughout his stories in the way that he describes the deaths of certain heroes and people with the sacrifice of animals and how they're described. As much as for us they seem very descriptive, but they're actually kind of general and vague, but he's making sure that at least when he then describes the death of heroes and the like, it is purposeful. So it's very, very cool. That's a great question, Clover. Sorry, you opened the Nadia rabbit hole, but oh, that was a good question. But I wept to see him now. Pity touched my heart, and I called out a winged word to him there. Elpenor, how did you travel down to this world of darkness? Faster on foot I see than I in my black ship. My comrade groaned as he offered me an answer. Royal son Laertes, Odysseus, old campaigner, the doom of an angry god, and God knows how much wine. They were my ruin, Captain. But I'd bedded down on the roof of Circe's house and never thought to climb back up again by the long ladder. Head first from the roof I plunged. My neck snapped from the backbone. My soul flew down to death. Now I beg you by those you left behind, so far from here, your wife, your father, who bred and reared you as a boy, and Telemachus, left at home in your halls, your only son. This would be a sideways way to explain that the gods, both humans and animals, are nothing but toys' property. Interesting. I'm not entirely sure. Probably not, but that's an interesting way to think. I'm not sure. They're kind of in a no man's land, Birchwood. Like, they're not really totally in the underworld proper, but they're, like, if you can imagine a no man's land area, that's where they are. Elpenor making him a good Ithacan hick. I don't know where he's from, but that's what we're doing. Don't worry, we'll bring the accent back when we get back to Ithaca. Well, I know when you leave this lodging of the dead that you and your ship will put ashore in the island of Aeaea. Then and there, my lord, remember me, I beg you. Don't sail off and desert me, left behind, unwept, unburied. Don't. Or my curse may draw God's fury on your head. Kind of like the purgatory. Similar to the Purgatorio. Normally the dead don't hang out in this no man's land. I really don't know how to perfectly describe it. He's sort of in the underworld, but he's like not really fully in the underworld. Just enough that he's not really going to piss off Hades or anybody for being like, why is a living person in my realm? But far enough that he's not really in the world of the living anymore. So I guess you could call it almost like a limbo. Is he in the underworld? He isn't. Called the dead from the lobby. Kinda. He's in like the lobby. He's in kind of a limbo. Very big, he isn't. Down from Erebus of the Souls. Ah. No, burn me in full armor, all my harness, heap my mound by the churning grey surf, a man whose luck ran out. So even men to come will learn my story, keep my story alive. Perform my rites, plant on my tomb that oar I swung with mates when I rode among the living. All this, my unlucky friend, I assured him, I will do for you. I won't forget a thing. How did the spirits find them, or rather, how did they find the spirits? So they wait, and spirits come to them. Part of the thing was they made, Akari, if you can remember the sort of handful just prior to this in Alliance where they talked about setting themselves up, digging the trench, scattering out stuff, leaving the sacrifices. It's all a ritual to kind of bring the dead to you. They are also highly attracted to the blood that has been spilled, because you say blood is life, right? So they're summoned by the sustenance. And they're all like, ooh, someone bring snacks. And he's like, not for any of you, but I might chat. Elpenor has the second best accent. Don't worry, I'll see if I can make it even thicker when we get to Ithaca and we've got Melantho and Melanthius, because they're going to be insufferable. So we sat and faced each other, trading our bleak parting words. I, on my side, holding my sword above the blood. He, across from me there, my comrade's phantom, dragging out his story. But look, the ghost of my mother came. Is this the origin of the vampires? No, it's not. There's some good videos on the history of some of the origin of what we consider the vampire, but I like that. My mother, dead and gone now. Anthea, daughter of the great heart, Autolycus, whom I had left alive when I sailed for sacred Troy. I broke into tears to see her here, but filled with pity, even throbbing with grief. I would not let her ghost approach the blood till I had questioned Tiresias myself. At last, he came, the shade of the famous Theban prophet, holding a golden scepter, knew me at once, and hailed me. Royal son Laertes, Odysseus, master of exploits, man of pain. What now? What brings you here, forsaking the light of day, to see this joyless kingdom of the dead? Stand back from the trench. Put up your sharp sword, so I can drink the blood and tell you all the truth. Okay, so Tiresias. Tiresias has entered the chat. Our old man. Not quite as old as Nestor, but our old man be here. Let's talk a bit about Tiresias. He's a well-known figure in Greek mythology. He's a, as we know, blind prophet of Apollo from the city-state of Thebes. He's the son of a nymph named Chariclo. She was a nymph devotee to Athena, and a shepherd named Evides. It is said that as a young man, he came upon a pair of mating snakes and hit them with a stick. And this pissed off Hera. This upset her, who then turned him into a woman as punishment. And he stayed a woman for a whole bunch of years. I think usually scholars say it's something like 7, but I don't know where exactly they get that number. Yeah, he's got quite a few stories that are scattered about. Until one day, he once again found another pair of mating snakes. Hold on. Genuine question. What does consuming blood do for the spirits? Does it change them in any external way? It does not change them, but I think for them it sort of reminds them of living. It's just because food kind of gives nothing to them. Like food really gives no sustenance. They're dead. Blood being life is sort of this one thing you can sort of give them. Tiresias of 1,000 Tales, it's true. And I think it just sort of allows you to interact with them in a way for that moment. I'm not sure. It's just one of the few myths I know that really involve like blood sacrifice where there's consumption of the blood. So I honestly don't know enough to give you a proper answer beyond that. I think it does something for them when they're in the underworld, but because they can't really consume anything else. Does being turned into a woman count as the first trans stories? I mean, do the Greeks know about the Atlantic Ocean or the Indian Ocean? They made trips to Africa, but beyond the... Okay, so the thing, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, I'm not entirely sure, but the Atlantic Ocean, I mean, think of Oceanus. It's kind of their way of understanding the idea of like the Atlantic Ocean, or that there are these massive seas from which, you know, you keep sailing and there's nothing in sight. That's a lot of people say like the idea of Oceanus, part of them is trying to understand when they would hit the Atlantic Ocean. As for the Indian Ocean, I actually don't know. That's a very good question. I'm not entirely sure. At least at this point, maybe not. But when you start getting into the Hellenistic era, like when you get into Alexander the Great, who we know famously tried to march his way sort of toward India and all of that, potentially. But at this point in the Bronze Age, I'm not certain. Okay, so the 7 years does come from Hesiod. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure the 7 comes from Apollodorus, but I didn't want to misspeak and have it be a Roman source. I know a lot of the sources for Tiresias, you get Pseudo-Apollodorus, Pausanias, there's a whole, like you see, there's a whole bunch of scattered stories about Tiresias, mostly about like how he becomes turned into a woman, what happens during that time, and how he kind of returns back, as well as how he becomes blind. There's a couple different versions of it. You say that Oceanus is the water as Helios is the sun. Kinda, yeah, if you want to go for that. Because again, Oceanus is from whom all water comes. Sea, salt, and fresh. So yeah, that's a good way. Oceanus very much, the water is, Helios is the sun. It's a good way to think on it. So anyway, while Tiresias is a woman, for something like 7 years, and some things potentially happened to him during that time, apparently 7 years later, he once again, yes, we're going to get to Tiresias in Oedipus. Hold on, we're getting there. We're getting there, just not yet. He's still a little young at the point where I'm at. He once again sees this pair of mating snakes, and depending on who you read, he either leaves them alone or he tramples them, which just feels counterintuitive given how he got into this mess, but either way, whichever version you read, he turns back into a man. Now, as I said, he's blind. He was not born blind. And there are many, as we say, versions and variations on the theme of how he became blind. Quite a few of them you can find in Pseudo-Apollodorus in his Bibliothecae, which is like kind of one of the first great Greek myth encyclopedias written in ancient times. And he goes through a couple different versions of like how Tiresias became blind. Regardless of like which god makes him blind or why, the point is that ultimately he does something to upset a god who makes him blind, but then it is also a god who gives him the gift of prophecy, kind of as saying, I'm so sorry, you've been made blind and we can't reverse this. Find some mating snakes, I won't deal with HRT anymore, sweet. I don't know. Maybe. And then finally, as was asked by Anxiety Leaves, which is such a great name, he does famously appear in the story of Oedipus, or Oedipus. He's the very prophet who, if you read Sophocles' Theban plays, the first one being Oedipus Tyrannus or Oedipus Rex, he is the prophet who, you know, what, for those who don't know, what happens in Oedipus is a terrible plague has struck the city-state of Thebes. And what happens is Oedipus is trying to figure out why. He sends his his sort of brother-in-law, Creon, to go and figure out what happens. He comes back from the oracle who says, you need to avenge the murder of the past king. And they're like, oh, well, you know, the last king, he kind of died, he disappeared, we don't really know what happened. Okay, he was murdered. Well, we don't know by who, like, nobody really knows what happened. So Oedipus, goes to Tiresias, who, is famed for the gift of prophecy. And, and initially Tiresias says, you don't want to know, basically. You should stop trying to find them, like you should stop, like you especially should stop. And Oedipus basically keeps pressing him and is like, whoa, why should I stop? Like, what's going on? And eventually Oedipus actually says, oh, you must be in like cahoots with the murderer, or you were there, like you must be a part of it. At which point Tiresias is like, oh, really? That's how you want to play this? Fine. The phone call is coming from inside the house. Bish, the criminal's you. You did it. And that is part of how eventually Oedipus starts to come down, starts to spiral out and realize, oh my god, this, because his then wife, who we're going to meet in here, who's called Jocasta, or Jocasta in Sophocles, says, oh yes, well that's so wild. We had this whole thing, this story that we had a son, a baby who we had to kill because we said he would kill his father, marry his mother, and Oedipus then starts spiraling out. He's like, oh my god, oh, you're the problem. Exactly. Now he also appears in another Sophocles play, part of this Theban play cycle, not an official trilogy, but a trio of plays, and that is Antigone. And so this is after what is known as the Seven Against Thebes. Oedipus, he blinds himself. He basically leaves his two sons in charge. Says you're going to co-rule, take turns. And he definitely calls it Diarrhea. How dare you? That's great and terrible. Tiresias basically warns Creon, who is now the king of Thebes after Polynices and Eurystheus? No, it's something with an E. Have murdered each other in this civil war they had out with each other. Tiresias warns Creon, saying, hey, the gods are really displeased that you're not allowing one of these two sons, Polynices, the one who ended up sieging Thebes, you're not allowing him a burial, and if you don't bury him, calamity essentially will fall upon you, Creon, and you will lose a son, and also, calamity will fall upon Thebes. They won't listen. The gods won't listen to any of their prayers, and it's a whole disaster piece, which again emphasizes the importance of burial rites. So yes, that is Tiresias. He's a very well-known blind prophet in Greek myth, really features a lot in stories about Thebes, so the big ones there are that of Oedipus. And then also really the stories of how he became blind and the fact that he also got turned into... dude looks like a lady. Dude became a lady for a bit. About 7 years. Got him, at least in one of the versions of how he became blind, got him in the middle of a very interesting argument between Hera and Zeus. Which was they were arguing who feels the most pleasure, basically, in bed and in, love. And Tiresias got roped in because he's like, well, I've technically experienced it both ways. And it was like, oh no, don't get in that argument. You don't want in that argument. He ended up blind as a result. Because he gave an answer that Hera didn't like, so she made him blind, and then Zeus was like, sorry, bruh, I'll give you prophecy because I can't undo the blinding. That's one of the versions. Another version is I think he saw Athena bathing, and she blinded him, and then she kind of felt so bad that it was something that was irreversible. She gave him prophecy. So again, there's multiple versions. Tiresias got stuck between Scylla and Charybdis there. He was kind of, that was a true no-win scenario. Was he also the prophet that spoke that prophecy of Oedipus? The kill your father, marry your mother? That might have been Tiresias, but I don't think that was a prophet. I think that might have been an oracle, like an oracle at Delphi. I don't think he's the one who gave the prophecy about Oedipus, but he was obviously aware of it. As far as I recall, I don't think that's him. I think they went to the oracle at Delphi. Yeah. I know. I wasn't going to be specific about the story because I remember reading them and I was giggling, but, yeah. Anyway. They have a group chat. Okay, yeah, it is the Oracle Delphi. I was pretty sure most of the time when you get things like that, like what's going to happen with the baby, most royal parents especially would go to the Oracle at Delphi to be like, hey, tell us about our kid. They gonna make it? Do we need to have an heir and a spare? Yeah, oh shit, my bad, bro. He really did kind of stumble his way into being a prophet. He didn't ask for it, but it was basically, the prophecy was a gift he got as an apology for being made blind, because being made blind was irreversible. No god was able to undo that curse. Moving back, I thrust my silver-studded sword deep in its sheath, and once he had drunk the dark blood, the words came ringing from the prophet in his power. A sweet, smooth journey home, renowned Odysseus. That is what you seek, but a god will make it hard for you, I know. You will never escape the one who shakes the earth. When did Tiresias die? Couldn't he have seen his death coming and prevent it? I mean, he died, I think, just sort of old age. He lived a really long life. He was pretty old by the time he died. Hence, he's an old man as a shade here. He could have seen his death coming, but I think by the time it came, it's like, you can't really prevent or stop death. Trust me, Sisyphus played that game and lost. So Poseidon can't heal Polyphemus. He might not be able to. But the Polyphemus' wound was caused by a mortal. The thing with Tiresias being blinded is that was a curse put on him by a god. Possible to reject gifts. it would be seen as insulting to the gods. Rejecting a gift from a god will not generally go well for you because they don't offer gifts lightly. Like true gifts. Gave him 7 times the human lifespan. Yeah, he truly got to live a long, old life. Part of why he saw so much go down. But yeah, no, you generally do not reject a gift given to you by the gods because they don't offer gifts lightly. It's very rare for them to truly offer you a gift. So you don't normally say no, hence, or you'll end up, maybe like Cassandra. Sister's pranking the hell out of Death and getting bouldered because of it. Hey, that's such a good joke. Well done, Jake. Well played. Well played. And true, prophecies are essentially kind of fates. You can't really defy it. Yeah. You might be given a choice, like, by the way, if you do this, this will happen, but you're kind of screwed. Cassandra, yeah. I think it was Apollo said, like, I'll give you prophecy. And she's like, screw you, I don't want it. He says, fine, I'm going to give you prophecy anyway. But no one will ever believe you. Are there any oracles not of Apollo? Most oracles are associated with Apollo specifically because they get associated with Delphi. And Delphi is a famous temple to Apollo. It's where he slew... What was the name of that dragon? I call it a dragon, like a monster, a beast. I think it gets often translated as dragon. He slew there. So he gets associated with prophecy. I can't think of any other oracles that aren't associated with Apollo. Zeus is very associated with omens, which ties to prophecy, but like oracles are really linked with Apollo. Python, thank you, the Python. Python? Typhon? No, it's not Typhon, yeah, so maybe it's the Python. It's like a dragon, a Python. It's whatever it's called. Yeah, now it's a dodgeball. Oracle of Apollo, why they have Apollo so common. He's just linked with oracles, specifically because he's linked with Delphi. And that was kind of like the big oracle, was the Oracle of Delphi. Does Zeus have some? I was going to say, I know Zeus is really linked with omens, which I guess you could say then you have oracles who interpret that. But most commonly we talk about... If it's from Delphi, if it isn't, it's just a sparkling prophet. Funny, funny. Yeah, so most famously they usually say of Apollo because they're probably talking about the Oracle at Delphi. And the Oracle at Delphi is famously the Oracle of Apollo. Apollo started calling dibs on the oracles. Yeah, it's true. But okay, so Zeus does have some. I was going to say Zeus was the only other one I would think of because he's so associated with omens that would make sense. See, you will never escape the one who shakes the earth, quaking with anger at you still enraged because you blinded the Cyclops, his dear son. Even so, you and your crew may still reach home, suffering all the way, if you only have the power to curb their wild desire and curb your own. What's more, from the day your good trim vessel first puts in at Thrinacia Island, flees the cruel blue sea. There you will find them grazing, herds and fat flocks, the cattle of Helios, god of the sun who sees all, hears all things. Leave the beasts unharmed, your mind set on home, and you may all still reach Ithaca. Bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way, and I can see it now. Your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well. Why is the sea now blue and not wine red? It's never described as wine red, it's described as wine dark. Mariana would have to tell me if they're using potentially a different descriptor word for calling it the cruel blue sea as opposed to the usual wine dark sea. I think it's potentially to make a link with Poseidon, as he has the description of like his hair being like dark and blue, what was it, Kaites or the like. Wine dark. Yeah. So I think it's probably it must be going to check. Thank you. Mariana can tell us if this is actually a change that's in the Greek, which I would think it is, because otherwise why wouldn't you just use wine dark to describe it? I think it's to make a link with Poseidon and a particular epithet that he has. Is Tiresias talking to only Odysseus? Can the rest of the crew hear specifically the warning about the cattle? Right now, Odysseus is the one who's talking to him. So only Odysseus can pretty much hear what's going on. The crew are kind of busy making sure none of the other shades try to approach the trench. IOA these like purple. Mariana, out of curiosity, I'm sorry, Mariana, I'm making demands of you. Compared with the word they use that often gets translated as wine dark, is that a different word in the Greek? Because, yeah, we got cows! Like the purple flower, the violet. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. IOA these. Is there I believe it is different, yes. Okay, so that would make sense why then the translation has used a different phrasing of cruel blue sea compared to wine dark sea. I know, Mariana, we had talked in book 9, and you sent me those wonderful notes in book 9 talking about how that word, is it Kaianokaides or something like that, which is used to describe Poseidon's hair, essentially basically saying he's got this dark blue hair like the sea. Is there a link between the IOA these for like the purple and that word that's used to describe his hair? Because I'm just wondering if we get the cruel blue sea, if we're trying to sort of nod to Poseidon at all, since we're talking about them trying to flee Poseidon. Yeah, this is definitely rabbit hole square of bingo. This is mostly curiosity, because I can understand a different word. There's that, but I just remember Mariana had sent that amazing note. We did see the color of violets in book 5. Interesting. Maybe we did. I'm wondering if it has any relation to that word that's used to describe Poseidon's hair in book 9 that you had mentioned. Curious. Oh no, it's 2 different words. The other one is chrono, like, yeah, did it not have like an ending on it though? Okay, guys, now we're really going to go down the rabbit hole because I'm actually going to pull up notes. Different notes. No, where was it? Notes on book 9. What was that? Equanokaites. Yeah, equanos and kaite. Okay, so maybe it is different. Kaides. Kaite. Interesting. Sorry. Oh, loose and flowing hair. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I needed to recheck her notes. That's all of me. Ignore me. It's fine. Yeah, so short answer to that whole rabbit hole that was a big old nothing burger. So is wine dark used more often in the violet word? Probably. The rabbit holes are part of why I like being. The rabbit holes are fun, especially if they go somewhere. But in this case, it doesn't go anywhere. I was remembering the wrong part of the word. Yes. Another violet sea. Give me them academic deep vibes. Obviously, we're getting deep into the Greek, and I'm a Greekless reader, so I don't know if maybe if Homer uses different words as an effect of facilitating the hexameter, which Mariana could tell you and I couldn't. But again, let's always remember the big thing was that the ancient Greeks didn't really have words specifically for hues in terms of color. They mostly thought of things in terms of light and dark. So it's essentially their way of trying to describe that this is that's a dangerous dark color for the sea. Let's see. Anyway. Leave the beasts unharmed. Your mind set on home, and you may all still reach Ithaca. Bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way, and I can see it now. Your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well. And even if you escape, you will come home late, and come a broken man, all shipmates lost, alone in a stranger's ship. And you will find a world of pain at home, crude, arrogant men, devouring all your goods, courting your noble wife, offering gifts to win her. No doubt you will pay them back in blood when you come home. But once you have killed those suitors in your halls, by stealth or in open fight with slashing bronze, go forth once more you must. Carry your well-planned oar until you come to a race of people who know nothing of the sea, whose food is never seasoned with salt. Strangers all to ships with their crimson prows and long slim oars, wings that make ships fly. And here is your sign, unmistakable, clear, so clear you cannot miss it. When another traveler falls in with you, and calls that weight across your shoulder a fan to winnow grain. So a fan to winnow grain. So before, in terms of, brief, talking about the history of sort of like agriculture here, before you had the grain like thresher, basically, whose food is never seasoned with salt. He has to walk all the way to London. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Nice. Well played. Well played. But yeah, before the invention of the grain thresher, grain was basically beaten on a flat surface, usually on a kind of windy type hill, because what you would then do was throw it all up into the wind so it would blow away the chaff into a kind of basket that was fixed to the end of a long handle. And that's what was known as a winnowing fan. So that's what he's talking about. He's like, basically, when you come to a group of people who like basically are landlocked and have never seen the sea and don't know what that idea is, so you're gonna have to, which for the Greeks would be like, whoa, that's pretty wild, because they are still very much a sea people in a way. Then plant your bladed, balanced oar in the earth, and sacrifice fine beasts to the Lord God of the sea, Poseidon, a ram, a bull, and a ramping wild boar. Then journey home, and render noble offerings up to the deathless gods who rule the vaulting skies, to all the gods in order. And at last your own death will steal upon you, a gentle, painless death. Far from the sea it comes to take you down, borne down with the years in ripe old age, with all your people there, in blessed peace around you. All that I have told you will come true. So, you've probably heard in that prophecy, some of those phrases are directly repeated from stuff we heard Polyphemus issue as his very specific curse against Odysseus. One of, again, the hallmarks of this format of storytelling, this epic poetry, is often that you will hear line for line repeats of stuff somebody said before. We've seen that before with, Zeus will say, Hermes, go tell Calypso XYZ. Hermes goes on to Calypso and repeats verbatim XYZ. In this case, we have that. Aside from Londoners, who is the group of people specifically? Are they meant to be a vague other or specific culture the Greeks were aware of back then? I believe it is meant to be kind of a vague other. I don't think it's a specific group of people. Else we probably would have named them. The idea is you're going to have to travel somewhere that you've never been. You'll have basically one last sort of journey, one last task you have to do. The ancient Greeks seasoned their food. Yes, they would have found a way to season their food. But what he means by don't know the taste of salt is the idea that the sea is salty. But they don't know the sea, so they don't season their food with salt. They don't have the effect of sea salt on their food, right? So that's what he means when he says people who don't know the taste of salt. It's not really about seasoning, more that they don't know the sea. seasoning something they're serious on. Beyond that, ancient Greeks and seasoning, I do not know. I am not a master of ancient cuisine, at least not of the Bronze Age. I mean, when you get to stuff, later times, yeah, they had forms of seasoning. They understood what it meant to use herbs and the like. But really, what he means here is like people who don't know the taste of salt, people who don't know the sea. Because obviously, if you smell the sea, it's salt water. You get the taste and the smell of salt. And this bit, that gentle, painless death far from the sea. So what's really interesting about that phrase, it is debated, and it has been debated and interpreted since even the ancient times. It's another one of those, like, sort of the Homeric question that's been debated ad nauseum since way back when. So what you for example, you'll see stuff like the great tragedians, Aeschylus and Sophocles. They seem to understand these words as a death that is out of the sea, right? Like your death comes from the sea. Since they write tragedies that's based on this legend that Odysseus ends up getting killed by a fishbone. Either like he gets blood poisoning from like a scratch of a fishbone. Now I can't remember whether it's like in the throat, because like you can choke on a fishbone, you can do some serious damage, or if it's the fact that he's wounded really by a spear that's tipped with fishbone, and that spear being wielded by Telegonus, who's the son of Odysseus and Circe. But you then have to look at the words, a gentle, painless death, which would tell against that interpretation. So like I said, basically, this is something that scholars, ancient and new, have kind of been debating with each other and kind of love to discuss and like sometimes even butt heads with each other over since the ancient times. Would Odysseus want or be expected to take Penelope and or Telemachus on his travels after his return? Remember, Menelaus take Helen through Egypt. The reason he took Helen through Egypt was because they were coming back from Troy. They kind of got sidetracked to Egypt because the weather kind of blew them there, and then they kind of got stuck there. So it is not common for you to take your family with you on adventures proper. If you're going like to visit someone and that's the kind of travel you're doing, yeah, you take your family with you. In the case of Helen, it's because you've come, he's literally just come from getting her back from Troy. Could the mysterious people be the Theos Protea? Theos Protea. I can spell. Oh, one of the regions of Greece. It could be. Again, we don't really know. Don't count on Homer for specific geography. He's not exactly great at it when it comes to the western side of Greece. So, yeah. Odie hater. So it could be, he could be talking about it somewhere in Greece, or it could be somewhere else. But we're not really entirely sure. It's left extremely vague and kind of on purpose. But yeah, the whole thing with Odysseus' death is it's debated a lot. Because Tiresias tells that you're going to have a gentle, painless death, and yet there are other writers who take that meaning, oh, well, he died from something from the sea, but then it's not gentle and painless. So it's like, bro, did none of you listen to Tiresias? So it gets debated what Tiresias means here all the time. And it has been debated basically since ancient times. People were arguing with each other. Which is kind of wild. O Tiresias, I replied as the prophet finished, surely the gods have spun this out as fate, the gods themselves. But tell me one thing more, and tell me clearly. I see the ghost of my long-lost mother here before me, dead, crouching close to the blood in silence. She cannot bear to look me in the eyes, her own son, or speak a word to me. How, Lord, how can I make her know me for the man I am? One rule there is, the famous seer explained, and simple for me to say, and you to learn. Any one of the ghosts you let approach the blood will speak the truth to you. Anyone you refuse will turn and fade away. And with those words, now that his prophecies had closed, the awesome shade of Lord Tiresias strode back to the house of death. But I kept watch there, steadfast, till my mother approached and drank the dark, clouding blood. She knew me at once and wailed out in grief, and her words came winging toward me. Did his mom find out about his horse victory at Troy before she died? At this point, she may not have. Because it seems she might have died. She could have died before Troy fell. We don't actually know. At this point, we're really only a year, maybe two, after the ending of Troy. She may not have known. It's the sad part. Her words came winging toward me, flying home. "Oh, my son, what brings you down to the world of death and darkness? We're still alive. It's hard for the living to catch a glimpse of this. Great rivers flow between us, terrible waters. The ocean, first of all. No one could ever ford that stream on foot, only aboard some sturdy craft. Have you just come from Troy, wandering long years with your men in ship? Not yet returned to Ithaca? You've still not seen your wife inside your halls?" "Mother," I replied, "I had to venture down to the house of death to consult the shade of Tiresias, seer of Thebes. Never yet have I neared Achaea, never once set foot on native ground. Always wandering. Endless hardship from that day I first set sail with King Agamemnon bound for Troy, the stallion land, to fight the Trojans there. But tell me about yourself. Spare me nothing. What form of death overcame you?" Is it true the mom died of heartbreak from when they No! No. Izzy, no. Izzy, I did a short on this. Come now, Izzy. No. No, she did not. She just died of grief. She's going to tell you. Here. Do you know how they meant the word Lord? What do you mean, which part of Lord? What may have meant? If it meant something with a political rank, divine favor, or something. Oh! Lord in the same way they say king. Yeah, a vague idea of power. Oh, Lord Tiresias. In this case, because he's dead, great Tiresias. He was a very powerful spirit, if you will. And he would have had some element of position and rank. It was a fun fact or a headcanon square. Yeah, it was a fun fact. Everybody kept saying, "Fun fact, she died this way." And I'm like, no. She also didn't kill herself. No. But tell me about yourself, and spare me nothing. What form of death overcame you? What laid you low? Some long, slow illness? Or did Artemis showering arrows come with her painless shafts and bring you down? AKA like Apollo, did you get a plague or something? Tell me of father. Tell of the son I left behind. Do my royal rights still lie in their safekeeping? Or does some stranger hold the throne by now, because men think I'll come home no more? Oh no, Artemis gentle shafts incoming. We've had a whole questions about that even before. Please, tell me about my wife, her turn of mind, her thoughts. Still standing fast beside our son, still guarding our great estates, secure as ever now. What is a shaft in this context? Oh, arrows. Gentle shafts. We're talking about arrows. Which was usually their way of talking about, like, the arrows of Apollo and Artemis could bring plague. Or has she wed some other countryman at last, the finest prince among them? Surely, surely, my noble mother answered quickly. She's still waiting there in your halls, poor woman, suffering so, her life an endless hardship like your own. With the Artemis' gentle shaft potentially asking, did you die by an opponent were you shot down? For his mother? No. Likelihood of that is so slim. Yes, Artemis and Apollo, the twins, plague arrows. So, no. The likelihood of events, he's not thinking that there was any kind of violence against his mother. But good question. Wasting away the nights, weeping away the days. No one has taken over your royal rights, not yet. Telemachus still holds your great estates in peace. He attends the public banquets shared with all. The feasts a man of justice should enjoy. Where did they get the plague arrows? They always have them. Generally, things like arrows, you could even say the thunderbolts of Zeus, are often made by like the Cyclopes who work in like Hephaestus's forges, but their arrows are always said to be either like when used against mankind or often usually some kind of plague arrow, and also are used to like hunt animals. Oh, achromatic, you haven't missed much. We're in the underworld. We've met his mom. We talked with Tiresias, got our prophecy. For every lord invites him. As for your father, he keeps to his own farm. He never goes to town. No bed for him there, no blankets, glossy throws. All winter long he sleeps in the lodge with servants in the ashes by the fire, his body wrapped in rags. But when summer comes, and the bumper crops of harvest, any spot in the rising ground of his vineyard rose, he makes his bed, heaped high with fallen leaves. And there he lies in anguish, with his old age bearing hard upon him too, and his grief grows as he longs for your return. And I, with the same grief, I died and met my fate. No sharp-eyed huntress, showering arrows through the halls, approached and brought me down with painless shafts. Nor did some hateful illness strike me that so often devastates the body, drains our limbs of power. No, it was my longing for you, my shining Odysseus, you and your quickness, you and your gentle ways, that tore away my life that had been sweet. And I, my mind in turmoil, how I longed to embrace my mother's spirit, dead as she was. 3 times I rushed toward her, desperate to hold her. 3 times she fluttered through my fingers, sifting away like a shadow, dissolving like a dream. And each time the grief cut to the heart, sharper, yes. And I cried out to her, words winging in the darkness, Mother, why not wait for me? How I long to hold you. So even here in the house of death, we can fling our loving arms around each other, take some joy in the tears that numb the heart. Or is this just some wraith that great Persephone sends my way to make me ache with sorrow all the more? My noble mother answered me at once. My son, the unluckiest man alive. This is no deception sent by Queen Persephone. This is just the way of mortals when we die. Sinews no longer bind the flesh and bones together. The fire in all its fury burns the body down to ashes, once life slips from the white bones, and the spirit, rustling, flitters away, flown like a dream. But you must long for the daylight. Go, quickly. Remember all these things, so one day you can tell them to your wife. So that whole thing with the idea of the soul flittering away, flying like a dream, like kind of leaving the body. People can remember the short I did talking about psyche in Psyche. That word, which can, as a non-naming noun, actually means like butterfly or moth, these descriptions of the soul, the way they kind of flit and fly free. The idea is, it's a metamorphosis. It is escaping, the ghost escaping the earthly shell, if you will. As devastating as this is there still the assumption Odysseus will be able to properly reunite with his mother when he does die? Yeah, he goes down to the underworld. You die, you go to the underworld. So yeah, the likelihood is he could, when he dies, try to find her in the underworld. As long as he's not sent to Tartarus, then yeah. There's definitely the assumption. Somebody asked a question. Why is Odysseus king? Because his father Laertes stepped down. Laertes was no longer physically in his prime. It was passed to Odysseus, who was just, Odysseus then became the next king because he's physically in his prime. He's, the best person to take hold of it. So Laertes is no longer king. But I don't agree, unfortunately. You don't agree with what? What, the descriptions of the soul? Mariana, we went over this. What's the difference between Tartarus and the underworld? Tartarus is for punishments. Serious punishments. Both god-type characters and mortals end up in Tartarus. The underworld is just sort of like everywhere else. This is probably destined to end up where the hero go. Are you thinking the Elysian Fields? It's pretty rare for... Isn't it the Elysian Fields and like Elysium? I mean, that area isn't just necessarily for heroes. You usually have to, like, be a great hero. Like for example, like Menelaus gets in because he's the bridegroom essentially of a daughter of Zeus. So he's Zeus's son-in-law. He's guaranteed a place in there. But heroes are not necessarily going to be guaranteed a spot in there. He might end up in the Elysian Fields, potentially. I mean, it's highly likely, but it's not guaranteed just because he's a hero. Tartarus is for Titans, Tantalus, Sisyphus, and Emily Wilson. So highly likely he'll end up in the Elysian Fields, should he complete his Nostos. Now, at this point, Odysseus isn't even sure he's going to complete his Nostos, because we're in sort of his own limbo state. He's thrown away the Kleos that he got from Troy, the idea of Kleos being tied to his metis, and that's all gone. He's in sort of a state of befuddlement, if you will. He doesn't really know his center anymore, and he needs to re-emerge from this descent into the underworld to then be like, all right, I'm going to go and be a hero whose Kleos is tied to my Nostos. So then if he completes the Nostos, he's on the track to then, hey, I've got my Kleos at least. Does that guarantee me the Elysian Fields? Maybe, maybe not. Probably yes. Okay, again, let me rephrase. The high likelihood is that he will end up in the Elysian Fields, what also gets called Elysium. But in this particular moment, his assumption is that he might just end up with his mother, because he's in a place of not really knowing who he is or what his purpose is sort of in the moment. So what people ended up in Tartarus? Oh, Jesse, like Sisyphus, Tantalus, the Titans, the whole list of creatures and people in Tartarus is pretty reasonable, and they're all suffering some pretty unique punishments. Add in, he's told to get home quickly is to keep his men in line and behave. At this point, he must realize it's a big ask. Yeah, he knows he's got a big task. Yeah, at this point, it's unknown, but in the end, breaking the fourth wall, we know they wouldn't at least. That's what Anagi. We know they wouldn't at least argues an hour 9:10. Breaking the. At this point, it's unknown. Wait, we know they wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Oh boy, so many questions about the underworld. Oh my goodness. With Menelaus going to Elysium, will Helen go to Elysium? Is Helen sentenced to an eternity separated from her husband because she's Zeus's daughter? She will not go to Elysium. She's not like a hero. Can someone in Elysium choose to visit or reside in Asphodel? Reside in Asphodel. Oh, do you just mean in the underworld? You don't generally leave Elysian Fields, Elysium. Oh my goodness. Oh no, Timotheus coming in with the Latin. Elysium heading to the mainstream. Hold on. Mihies aliquid rogandum Tiresias ulixi dixideos ipsos filii fati deduxisse secundum Odysseam quae potestas Maia fratunidis ae fatis Nona Decuma Morta. This is also a question. Tiresias, oh god, grammar. What is Asphodel? It's the study of the fields of Asphodel. It's the sort of area of the general underworld. I know, my Latin quiz time. My Latin quiz. Okay, hold on. Let me make this bigger so I can actually see this a little better. I swear I'm not blind. Something to ask. Tiresias tells Odysseus the gods themselves something philum? Not like Philly. That can't be right. Basically decide fate according to the Odyssey. Who has Secundum Odysseum? Who has greater power of fate? The gods greater. Oh, who is the? Is essentially who's got the most power? Fates or the gods? Nona Decuma Morta. 10, no, 9, Nona, 9, 10, 19 death, 9, 10 death. Oh boy, oh my god, my Latin is being tested. If you're asking who's got more power between the fates and the gods, it would be the fates. Even the gods cannot twist fates, so they seem to have an interesting, almost symbiotic relationship. Wasn't it said spirits in the Asphodel don't retain their memory because of the river of Lethe? Oh my god, guys. Guys. You're killing me. Okay. Guess I should have prepared a ton of notes on the underworld. Because the Asphodel Meadows, it's a place of neutral existence. We're going to talk about it later in the Odyssey. It's near what gets called this kind of land of dreams area. It's the place where basically people have died. They don't forget. They're just sort of there. Like, you weren't a hero, but you weren't terrible, so you just go to the fields of Asphodel. You have not necessarily lost your memory. You're just there. I know, I just didn't think there would be this many questions about, like, the underworld itself as opposed to stuff that we talk about specifically in the book. Can Poseidon ask for him to be put in Tartarus if he wanted? He could, but Odysseus, frankly, hasn't done anything nearly bad enough to warrant it. Like, Tartarus is for the greatest of sinners. Like, truly the greatest of sinners. Also, Timotheus, you will have to tell me if I was right in gandering what your question meant, though you've lost me a bit in the parentheses. Was the question who's got essentially more power over, like, fortune, essentially, or, like, how your life turns out, the gods or the fates? It would be the fates. Odysseus doesn't know he will go to Elysium, of course, but Anticlea here strikes the idea that there is no finalistic movement of the soul, so the idea of reunite is negated by her. Oh, Mariana, that's what you meant. I'm so sorry. It's been a week. My brain is slow. Yeah, the section of the underworld that is the fields of Asphodel is just... some people might actually compare it to, like, a purgatory. It's just sort of there. It's basically where everybody who's not a hero or a great sinner goes. Some people describe it as being like, it's where the mediocre souls go, but I think that's kind of unfair. It's the, like... what's the word I'm looking for? Uneventful souls go. I put the translation in Discord if you're curious how they translate it. You got the general gist. I was going to say the parentheses throws me, Timotheus. I'm not going to lie. Because Nona Decum Morta, I'm like, 9, 10 death? I don't really know what we're... Asking specifically, do all Olympians have the power to send to someone to Tartarus, or would some Olympians have to get the approval of the gods? No, generally Zeus is the one who's going to do that. Because that's truly, okay, let's get this straight. Being sentenced to Tartarus is so extreme a punishment because you don't leave Tartarus once you're in there. This isn't like you get punished for a while and then, hey, maybe we'll let you out. This is your eternal suffering. Nothing about this ever changes for you, and that's why it's usually very creative. You have to have done something so fucking egregious to end up in Tartarus. Like, you do not just get put in Tartarus because you pissed off a god. You did something so sacrilegious, so offensive, you ended up there. Blinding a god's son is not enough to get you put in Tartarus. It's being banished to, like, the worst parts of hell. It's not even just being banished to hell. It's the worst of hell, and there's no redemption. Isn't the underworld also eternal? Yeah, I never said it wasn't. As I said, you're in eternal punishment. The underworld is eternal. You're dead. The underworld continues on and on. There's no parole from Tartarus. It's true. What's the difference between the fields of punishment? What are the fields? The fields of punishment are not a thing. What are the fields of punishment? I've never heard of the fields of punishment. Is this a Riordan thing, Izzy? Is this a Riordan thing? Because I've heard that in relation to Riordan, and it's not a thing. Fields of Punishment is not a Riordan thing. It does not exist. You just have Tartarus. Tartarus is where punishments happen, and the most egregious of punishments. The Fields of Punishment is not a thing. That's Riordan making shit up. We know Odysseus will be immortalized as a cult hero. Yes, Nadia argues that the Hades is a transitional space where the heroes go to a definite parody. Ah, yes. Sisyphus not only trapped Thanatos, god of death, he like really fucked with the gods a lot as well. Yeah, you have to be really bad to be a mortal who's sent to Tartarus. It's true. Co-opting it. Oh, it's right. Is that why I'm also getting all these questions about the idea of like you go to the fields of Asphodel and you forget everything? Because the fields of Asphodel, it's like you don't forget everything. Like you're not forced to drink the river Lethe. You're just there in the fields of Asphodel. Oh, yeah, there is no distinction between the human sinners and non-human sinners who end up in Tartarus. You all just end up, hey, you get a Tartarus, you get a Tartarus, you get to go straight to Tartarus. It's everybody goes to Tartarus. Okay, this explains where I was getting, so I'm like, where are we getting this from? We need do we not have a Riordan space? I'm pretty sure we have a Riordan space on the bingo. Yes, and Stephanie's given great examples. Tantalus fed his son to the gods, making them potentially complicit in consuming human flesh. The Sisyphus again did the tricking of the gods and fucked up really badly. Like there's several others. We mentioned at least one, I think, in the past when we talked about the Phaeacians. There was a guy who tried to SA Leto, the mother of Apollo and Aphrodite. I'm sorry, and Artemis. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I do not mind Riordan making his own world for his stories. It's, so long as people know that's for his story. Which I get, again, I understand that, again, there are people who are not going to realize that, hey, the sacrificing of Iphigenia? He did sacrifice them. He didn't feed her to them. It's different than just the sacrifice, which, trust me, he's punished for that. You mean Agamemnon. Don't worry. They played the long game on that one. Don't worry, fear not. He got punished enough. But that's not something that would lead to Tartarus, though. It's certainly not great. There's just different myths on the dying and forgetting thing. Well, it's if you drink from the river Lethe, but you're not required to. Let me put it that way. Drinking from the river Lethe is not a requirement to get into the fields of Asphodel, because you're sort of blanket, everybody gets a ticket to the fields of Asphodel unless you fucked up that bad and you go to Tartarus, which, you're usually pretty aware you're going to fucking Tartarus, and oftentimes the gods will sometimes just kill you on the spot to make that happen, or you are a hero who has ascended to the point that you get to go to the Elysian Fields. House of Atreus, yes. Yeah, I'm surprised Riordan didn't do a glossary. That's something I would have thought he'd do. +1 on the crew question. So yes, there is the idea of the river Lethe, which you drink and it will make you forget. but it is not a requirement to get into the Fields of Asphodel. I was gonna say, has anyone made bingo yet? I was gonna say, I'm waiting for the moment I just see like bingo in all caps going through the chat, and then we'll have to have somebody validate the bingo. Yeah, it is the House of Atreus. Strikes again. All right, and I saw somebody ask earlier, have we hit Agamemnon and Achilles? No, trust me. Trust me. They're closer to the end of these encounters. We're going to be going on a tour of dead Greek myth figures. Will Clytemnestra killing Agamemnon be considered awful enough to go to Tartarus? No. Just killing someone is not enough to get you in Tartarus. Okay? You have to do something so offensive to the gods. So remember again, Tantalus murdered his son to serve him as food to the gods. And then Sisyphus decided to say, I'm better and smarter than all you gods, so I'm going to try to trick you. They got mad about it. So it's not just doing something to another mortal is necessarily going to guarantee you a spot in Tartarus. The idea of going to Tartarus is not that common. It's an intense punishment. With the Erinyes, the Furies kind of overhead, like adding to your punishment the whole time. You need to, yeah, you need to have gotten a serious true crime special, like multiple ones. You have to have done something so sacrilegious, is really the word I'm looking for. So much more of these are really sacrilegious. So how much have we had so far? Highlights, how much of what? We've talked to Tiresias, we've talked to Anticlea, and Alpinor. Those are the three we've talked to. Eurylochus and the crew eating the cows actually will likely not get them sent to Tartarus. Because Helios just says, kill them, and I'm satisfied. He doesn't say, like, send them to Tartarus for a punishment. It's just kill them and I'll be satisfied. One god is enough, but usually it's you offend all the gods. Bingo. Somebody made bingo. All right, Trichologist says they made bingo. Somebody verify this is bingo, and I will get up and go give Peg a carrot. And Agnes. Okay, people are claiming bingo. Someone verify this bingo. Okay, what is the second row? Hold on. Now that we're playing bingo. Hold on, guys. Hold your questions for a second while we validate. Actually, you know what? Our only despicable acts against the gods' punishment are like a mass murder against... Mass murder is just mass murder. I mean, we had the whole sack of Troy. You can make an argument that that's mass murder. But it's not going to necessarily get you into Tartarus. Because again, we're talking sacrilegious. That does basically necessitate you do something against the gods. And something that is so horrifying to all of the Greeks that go, the gods aren't going to like that either. How can they come back for 600 strike? Come on, guys. Oh, Jake. Fun fact, rabbit hole, source. I guess I did technically say that. Caught in the Weeds. Eurylochus cameo. Caught in the Weeds. Did we get Caught in the Weeds? And that's with time or place, right? I guess we were asking about where's a land with who doesn't know salt. Specifically sacrilegious, yeah, but to the extreme. Little Ajax. No, not Little Ajax kind of sacrilegious. That'll just get you punished. Again, you can do shit like that and you'll just get punished. You have to do something to a level of egregiousness that cannot be quantified, basically, to end up getting sent to Tartarus. Yeah, Sisyphus tried to basically pull a fast one on the gods and truly believed he was smarter than all the gods, and he kind of did it twice in the, like, because he, as if once was not enough. They sort of let him, they briefly almost sort of let him off with a warning, and then he did it all over again, and they were like, all right, fuck this guy. And then Tantalus murdered his child, chopped him up, and served him to the gods. And it's like, okay. Peg, would you like a carrot? We've made bingo. Hold on, I gotta get Peg her bingo carrot. Ugh. Oh God, let me not hit this cord. Would you like a carrot? Yeah. Okay. Come here, Mama. This is still cool. Hold on, Peg, I gotta wet your thing again. first off, put your bandana back on. Because I'm pretty sure it's still like 77 degrees in here. Come here. All right, come here, Mama. Come here. I got your carrot. Come here. Yeah. Come here. You come up, please. Oh, wow. You'll really give me like that? Come on. Up, up. Show off. Yeah. And there she goes. And she's gone. Fashion peg. Yeah. Good girl. She's going to try to bury that now. Oh, no. Or eat it right away. Good girl. Okay. Oh, my God. She pops in. She pops back down. Yeah, it's warm. She's sticking down close to the floor. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, Tartarus, you have to do something particularly sacrilegious and egregious, like on a level, again, that's unquantifiable. So there we go. There we go. All right. And so we both confided, trading parting words, and there slowly came a grand array of women, all sent before me now by august Persephone, and all were wives and daughters once of princes. They swarmed in a flock around the dark blood, while I searched for a way to question each alone. And the more I thought, the more this seemed the best. Drawing forth the long sharp sword from beside my hip, I would not let them drink the dark blood all in a rush. And so they waited, coming forward one after another. Each declared her lineage, and I explored them all. If someone pulled a Tantalus instead of feeding their child to the gods and the humans, that would probably also get you into Tartarus, because that's cannibalism, and that's strongly looked down upon. Strongly looked down upon for a mortal to do that. And I'm sure you're probably asking that with regards to Atreus. However, the curse of the house of Atreus, which goes all the way back to Tantalus, killing Pelops, is that whole bloodline was basically going to consume itself. They kind of, again, the gods could play the long game, basically, after Tantalus, because Tantalus did it first, he got his hardcore punishment, and after that, watching that line destroy itself the way that it did, for them, they're like, that's punishment enough. Yeah, it is very much a let's fuck around and find out. And the first I saw there, what does he mean by they were sent by Persephone? Essentially, she allowed these shades to go out and sniff at what's going on, right? Because, again, Persephone and Hades kind of keep an eye on what's going on. They would notice something like this. It's just like, what's that? I'll allow it. And the first I saw there, Tyro, born of kings, who said her father was the great lord Salmoneus, said that she was the wife of Critheus, Iolaus' son. Not the Iolaus who is the keeper of the winds. This is a different Iolaus. Like I'd said in a short, there are quite a few Iolases. And once she fell in love with the river god Enipeus, far the clearest river flowing across the earth. And so she'd haunt Epineus' glinting streams, till taking his shape one day, the god who girds the earth and makes it tremble, bedded her where the swirling river rushes out to sea, and a surging wave reared up high as a mountain, dark, arching over to hide the god and mortal girl together. Loosing her virgin belt, he lapped her round in sleep, and when the god had consummated his work of love, he took her by the hand and hailed her warmly. Rejoice in our love, my lady, and when this year has run its course, you will give birth to glorious children. Bedding down with the gods is never barren, futile, and you must tend them, breed and rear them well. Now home you go, and restrain yourself, I say. Never breathe your lover's name, but know, I am Poseidon, God who rocks the earth. With that, he dove back in the heaving waves, and she conceived for the god and bore him Peleus Neleus. And both grew up to be stalwart aids of Zeus Almighty, both men alike. Peleus lived on the plains of Iolcus, rich in sheep flocks. Neleus lived in sandy Pylos, and the noble queen bore sons to Cretheus too, Iason, Pheres, and Amythaon, exultant charioteer. Now, this is the bloodline of Jason and the Argonauts. It's quite the tumble. I constantly tumble over names. Peleus is uncle to Iason. Iason is the father of Jason. And Peleus is ultimately going to slay Iason and take over his kingdom, and that he's going to send Jason off for the Golden Fleece. Now, Neleus is the father of old King Nestor. Old King Nestor, that's our man's. Our old as hell man, that's his dad. Again, as I said, he is a cousin, like a half cousin of Jason. Jason's father, the one that got murdered and sent Jason on his journey. Peleus is the one who killed Iason. Oh, the loving sexcapade of Poseidon. Ah, yes, it's quite the tumble. Does this count for a square? It is a Nestor. Is there another bingo? Because Pylos. Yes, because Pylos. We talked about Pylos. Yes, and Iolcus is the kingdom of Jason. It is technically, I think, our second mention of Nestor. But we have to mention how old he is. He's an old. So that's who Tyro or Tyro is. She's kind of the matriarch of that line. After Tyro, I saw Asopus' daughter Antiope. Proud, she spent a night in the arms of Zeus himself, and born the god twin sons, Amphion and Zethus, the first to build the footings of 7-gated Thebes, her bastions too, for lacking ramparts none could live in a place so vast, so open, strong as both men were. Thebes, of course, we've talked about with regards to leading down the line to Oedipus, and that whole tragedy. And the 7-gated Thebes, as it was called, hence you had the 7 against Thebes. 7 is a number that recurs a lot with that. In that these two brothers who end up fighting their civil war basically each gather 7 heroes in their armies to each of their sides, and they're attacking all the gates to try and get it. Really, the 7 against Thebes is like the great precursor to what the siege of Troy is going to be like. It's the only other kind of real siege like that they can think of, and it was pretty devastating to Thebes especially. I mean, Oedipus's line is basically wiped out, essentially. I saw Alcmena next, Amphitrion's wife, who slept in the clasp of Zeus and merged in love and brought forth Heracles, the guy. Rugged will and lion heart. And I saw Megara too, magnanimous Creon's daughter, wed to the stalwart Heracles, the hero never daunted. Yeah, unfortunate how she ended up there, but that's really not entirely his fault. And I saw the mother of Oedipus, beautiful Epicaste. Now she's called Epicaste here. Later on, obviously, Sophocles is going to call her Iocasta. Same person, just different name. What a monstrous thing she did. In all innocence, she married her own son, who'd killed his father, then married her. But the gods, Megara. Oh yeah, Mari, did you not know? So Megara is the first, I believe, first wife of Heracles. He murders her. Again, not entirely his fault. Hera basically sends down madness upon him. I mean, she's big mad at him for existing. It's kind of how he ends up having to. It's why he ends up having to do his labors, is because of this sin he commits of murdering his family, which again, it's really not his fault. Yeah, Disney kind of ignored that one. Disney decided not to roll with that one. I know, I'm already on it. I saw the eyes and the Megara, and I was like, I wonder if you're like, wait, like Disney's Hercules? Yes. Yeah, Hera can't punish Zeus for his cheating, so she tends to punish his progeny. And her punishing of... She's pretty relentless when it comes to Heracles, but it's part of why he is the guy and ends up becoming the hero of all of them. And he, ends up becoming deified as one of the Theoi and goes through this whole... It's so interesting. Yeah. Obviously, yes, she's the inspiration for the idea of having Disney's Megara, but, like, not... They're not the same. So yeah, this is why Heracles ended up having to do his labors. It was atonement, attempting to atone for this sin of murdering his wife and all of this, which again... Yeah, Heracles does really suffer. Hera at kind of her worst. She's very furious about his existence, and she is relentless in her pursuit of just trying to make him miserable and punish him for existing. But the result is he always succeeds. He gets great kleos. He is the hero. He is the guy. He's the exception to all the rules. He ends up becoming a Theoi, a god himself. Yeah, no, Disney's Hercules, look, I look at Disney's Hercules and go, right from the bat, that movie makes it clear it's not following the rules of mythology, and it's going to do its own thing, which is why I can look at it and be way more forgiving of it, because I'm like, oh, you make it so clear from the opening, we're off in left field. Okay. Given it wasn't considered cheating unless the lover was brought back to the marriage bed, I viewed her as unreasonably justified by her anger. Here's the thing. All of Greece is basically Zeus's marriage bed. He rules the sky, he's the god, the king of the gods, so it's like, in his case, he essentially rules. Like, all of Greece is his wedding bed. Kind of cheating no matter what. Did Hera punish Helen? No, she did not. Heracles is the Big Lebowski of the ancient Greek mythos. He is the guy. Well, not only does she exist with him for eternity, what she actually does when Heracles ascends to Olympus, he does have a mortal shade we will see in the underworld. The only thing that isn't Zeus's marriage bed is Poseidon's, and I guess technically Hades, but nobody's really going down there. Yeah, it's true. But so Heracles ascends to godhood, essentially. He ascends up to the Theoi, and Hera does this really interesting, ritual where it's almost like she sort of rebirths Heracles, and he becomes her son, and, she is now his mother. And so that kind of washes everything, the slate, so clean. He also came and, did them a real solid and helped them out in the Gigantomachia. But at that point, you're sort of wiped clean, and he has a totally different existence. Given how much Zeus cheated in something that counted as his marriage bed, would he have been a bit sympathetic to Aphrodite when she was caught cheating? Would he have been? He probably wouldn't have been surprised. Part of why he married her off was he recognized that all of the male gods were looking at her like, damn, girl. So I think he would have been more unsurprised than anything else, and probably also knew better than to get involved. Megara was spending the rest of eternity with her murderer. You mean with the shade of her husband, basically? Oh, wait, I don't know what you mean. Why would Megara be spending eternity? She wouldn't, though. Megara isn't deified. Only Heracles is deified. Megara has no reason to be deified. Megara is just a shade that resides in the underworld. Yes, Heracles has a shade that's in the underworld, but Heracles proper has ascended. It's kind of weird. The underworld's a big place. They're not necessarily going to interact. And I can't remember. I think that Heracles' shade is in the Elysian Fields anyway, though I'm not entirely certain. Yeah, that's kind of what his shade is. Oh, yeah, okay, I was going to say, I wondered, Jesse, if you were thinking she got deified. No, she does not get deified. None of his wives end up deified. They have no reason to be. They did not do the heroic deeds, right? But the gods soon made it known to all mankind, so he, in growing pain, ruled on in beloved Thebes, lording Cadmus's people, thanks to the gods' brutal plan. While she went down to death, who guards the massive gates, lashing a noose to a steep rafter, there she hanged aloft, strangling in all her anguish, leaving her son to bear the world of horror a mother's furies bring to life. This repeating the world, a horror a mother's furies bring to life. If a woman, usually if a son somehow kills their mother, this ties into the story of the house of Atreus, where Orestes has the Erinyes, the Furies, kind of like hounding him because he murders his mother as a result of her murdering his father. That's why he has to go through the whole, the Eumenides, as they are also called, hence you have that third play in the trilogy of the Oresteia where he has to go kind of like go through a trial and be ritually cleansed and all of this. But yeah, they're basically saying she killed herself in the horror of realization of what she had done, which again, she had done in all innocence, but she did. It sucks. That's why they say, like, man, life sucks, then you die. And I saw magnificent Chloris, the one whom Neleus wooed and won with a hoard of splendid gifts, so dazzled by her beauty years ago, the youngest daughter of Iasus' son Amphion, the great Manyan king who ruled Orchomenos once. She was his queen in Pylos. She bore him shining sons, Nestor and Chromius, Periclymenus too, good prince. And after she bore her sons, she bore a daughter, majestic Pero, the marvel of her time, courted by all the young lords round about. But Neleus would not give her to any suitor, none but the man who might drive home the herds that powerful Iphiclus had stolen, lurching broad in the brow those long-horned beasts, and no small task to round them up from Phyleus. Ade infacile portenaio Vincenzo de Benetto, please, in English, Hades, the inflexible doorman. That's a good way to describe him. Only the valiant seer Melampus volunteered. He would drive them home, but a god's iron sentence bound him fast. Barbarous herdsmen dragged him off in chains. Yet when the months and days had run their course, and the year wheeled round and the seasons came again, then mighty Iphiclus loosed the prophet's shackles, once he had told him all the gods' decrees. And so the will of Zeus was done at last. So basically, the story of Nestor's sister and how she got married. Man, okay. Yeah, this is our Nestor of Pylos. This is the story of his mom and, then his sister. So here we're talking about with Melampus the seer and Iphiclus and all of this. That is the story of how his sister Pero was married. I know, yeah, you will see people who are, again, part of the beauty of why I didn't have to take so many notes necessarily for a lot of these is Homer does a rundown of these people and explains who they are, which is helpful. And I saw Leda next, Tyndareus' wife, who'd borne the king 2 sons, intrepid twins, Castor, breaker of horses, and the hardy boxer, Polydeuces. Both buried now in the life-giving earth, though still alive. Even under the earth, Zeus grants them that distinction. One day alive, the next day dead, each twin by turns. They both hold honors equal to the gods. So that's part of the story of Leda and the swan, is that she had essentially 2 sets of twins, usually is how it goes. Castor. So one set had been mortal. They were conceived with her husband Tyndareus, and the other 2 were children of Zeus. And that's Helen and one of the 2 twins. So Clytemnestra is a true daughter of Tyndareus, and one of the other twins is. I always mix up between Castor and Polydeuces who it is. But the idea is that Castor, and the Romanization of their names is Castor and Pollux. The twins, often seen, if you're into astrology, the Gemini. The Dioscuri, I believe, is the word that's used in Greek for them. So they were so close that when one of them essentially had a different, longer/better lifespan than the other, and the other was mortal and, doomed to go down to the underworld. And so when that one died, like, the other was so distraught, he called out to his father Zeus, and he's like, can we find a way to split the difference here? Yeah, the Dioscuri. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they're called the Dioscuri. People most usually know the Romanized version, which is the Gemini. Um, oh yeah, Peg is, she's nesting. She's doing her thing. Uh, so yeah, that's who, so their mother was Leda. Yeah, with the hang with the swan. I saw Iphimedeia next, Aloeus' wife, she who claimed she lay in the sea lord's loving waves, and gave the god 2 sons. But they did not live long. Otis, staunch as a god, and far famed Ephialtes. They were the tallest men the fertile earth had borne, the handsomest too by far, aside from renowned Orion. What's the Greek myth on twins? What do you mean, what's the Greek myth on twins? Like, are they special? Are they unique? Not really. Beyond the Dioscuri, not really. Just twins. They're a thing that happen. Yes, everyone please drink water. Stay hydrated. Sons of gods, yes. So noting that you have Otus and Ephialtes, in addition you've got Orion. Poseidon just has a tendency to just often have, like, his children are just huge. It is a thing with Poseidon. I have no idea why, but it's a thing with Poseidon. It's just a thing. Otus and Ephialtes, 9 yards across they measured, even at 9 years old. 9 fathoms tall they towered. They even threatened the deathless gods. They'd storm Olympus's heights with the pounding rush and grinding shock of battle. They were wild to pile Ossa upon Olympus. Then on Ossa, Pelion dense with timber, their toeholds up to the heavens. And they'd have won the day if they had reached peak strength. But Apollo, the son of Zeus, whom sleek-haired Leto bore, laid both giants low before their beards had sprouted, covering chin and cheek with a fresh crop of down. Beards sprouting is usually a sign of reaching, like, proper manhood. Yeah, they basically said, we're going to build a mountain that is equal to Olympus, and the gods went, oh, that's cute. And so Apollo struck them down. So it was like, no, you don't, pumpkin. That's adorable, but no. Phaedra and Pocris too I saw, and lovely Ariadne, daughter of Minos, that harsh king. One day Theseus tried to spirit her off from Crete to Athens' sacred heights, but he got no joy from her. Artemis killed her first on wave-washed Dia's shores, accused by Dionysus. One of the many versions of what happens to Ariadne. She's either left there, she's killed there. Again, variations on a theme. Always very. Manhood is measured by the stage of puberty you've gone through. Kind of essentially. Kind of essentially. Basically, where's your facial hair? Which, I mean, if you've met Mediterranean men, hair. Hair everywhere. Didn't Dionysus marry? It depends which version you read. Anxiety leaves. As I said, variations on a theme. Sometimes he marries her, sometimes she's just his lover, sometimes she's killed. Kind of depends on who you read. Basically. And I saw Clymene, Maida, and loathsome Eriphyle, bribed with a golden necklace to lure her lawful husband to his death. But the whole cortege I could never tally, never name. Not all the daughters and wives of great men I saw there. Long before that, the God-sent night would ebb away. But the time has come for sleep, either with friends aboard your swift ship, or here in your own house. My passage home will rest with the gods and you. What about women with PCOS? Agnes, really? Really? Agnes. They're not. Look. Okay. I don't want to get into a gender and sex argument because, again, their understanding of that was so radically different from what we have here. But if that's a serious question, the Greeks would go like, that's women, that's men. The reason I don't want to say it is I know somebody will clip it and take it out of context. It's just different times. um, a woman who has PCOS and somehow ends up with facial hair. You're not a man in ancient Greece. What was that with luring their husbands? Specifically Eriphyle. Eriphyle, it's a myth. It takes me a second. Hold on, I need to check it. Because I don't want to misspeak it. It's been a long time since I looked at that one. Daughter of Talaos. Oh, that is okay. I wondered if this involves what is okay. We're talking at this point in this, so I figured this was. This has to do with the 7 against Thebes. So the necklace they're talking about is what is known as the necklace of Harmonia, and in this case, sometimes called the necklace of Eriphyle. She was given it by Polynices, who was one of the sons of Oedipus, the one, in fact, who was going to be sieging Thebes. He gave it to her to basically bribe her husband, Amphiaraus, she's got quite a name, to join the 7 against Thebes, even though the likelihood is that they would probably die. And she's later killed by her own son. But that's what they're talking about, is that she was lured by the golden necklace, this necklace of Harmonia. And the necklace of Harmonia is this beautiful necklace, but it, like, kind of is a cursed necklace, basically. Like, all humans who end up with it kind of end up with misfortune. That's the story of luring her husband. Essentially, she was bribed to convince her husband to join the 7 against Thebes, and ultimately he died at Thebes, because basically everyone involved with the 7 against Thebes died. It's a whole nother generation getting wiped out. Go figure. Again, that's why I say it's like it's like the precursor to the Trojan War, where you have this generational conflict that wipes out kind of a whole generation, and you have a long and nasty siege, but in this case it's a civil war, and it's really quite sad and gnarly. Really ruins Thebes kind of as an eminent city-state, if you look at it in mythology in that way. But that's what the story of Eriphyle and her husband is. It's what I was sure it was. When I saw golden necklace, I'm like, oh, this is the necklace of Harmonia, but I had to go and check. Yeah, filling the name and list quota. It's true. Odysseus paused. They all fell silent, hushed. His story holding them... Are we driving you crazy with the directions our neurodivergent brains are... Sometimes. But I bear with it. It's only if they go off a question where I'm like, is this a serious question or is this a joke question? You probably heard Peg settling herself in the background. I wouldn't be shocked. His story holding them spellbound down the shadowed halls, till the white-armed queen, Arete, suddenly burst out. Phaeacians! How does this man impress you now? His looks, his build, the balanced mind inside him. The stranger is my guest. But each of you princes shares the honor here. So let's not be too hasty and send him on his way. And don't scrimp on his gifts. His need is great, great as the riches piled up in your houses, thanks to the gods' goodwill. Following her, the old revered Echeneus added his support, the eldest lord on the Isle of Phaeacia. Friends, the words of our considerate queen, they never miss the mark or fail our expectations. So do as Arete says, though on Alcinous here depend all words and action. And so it will be, Alcinous stepped in grandly. Sure as I am alive and rule our island, men who love their oars. Our guest, much as he longs for passage home, must stay and wait it out here till tomorrow, till I can collect his whole array of parting gifts. His send-off rests with every noble here, but with me most of all. I hold the reins of power in the realm. Odysseus, deft and tactful, echoed back. Alcinous, Majesty, shining among your island people, if you would urge me now to stay here 1 whole year, then speed me home weighed down with lordly gifts, I'd gladly have it so. Better by far that way. The fuller my arms on landing there at home, the more respected, well received I'd be by all who saw me sailing back to Ithaca. Ah, Odysseus, Alcinous replied. One look at you and we know that you are no one who would cheat us. No fraud, such as the dark soil breeds and spreads across the face of the earth these days. Crowds of vagabonds frame their lies so tightly none can test them. But you, what grace you give your words, and what good sense within. You have told your story with all a singer's skill, the miseries you endured, your great Achaeans too. But come now, tell me truly, your godlike comrades, did you see any heroes down in the house of death? Any who sailed with you and met their doom at Troy? The night's still young, I'd say the night is endless. For us in the palace now, it's hardly time for sleep. Keep telling us your adventures. They are wonderful. I could hold out here till dawn's first light, if only you could bear, here in our halls, to tell the tale of all the pains you've suffered. So the man of countless exploits carried on. Alcinous, Majesty, shining among your island people, there is a time for many words, a time for sleep as well. But if you insist on hearing more, I'd never stint on telling my own tale, and those more painful still, the griefs of my comrades dead in the war's wake, who escaped the battle cries of Trojan armies, only to die in blood at journey's end, thanks to a vicious woman's will. Now then, no sooner had Queen Persephone driven off the ghosts of lovely women, scattering left and right, than forward marched the shade of Atreus' son, Agamemnon, fraught with grief and flanked by all his comrades, troops of his men at arms who died beside him, who met their fate in Lord Aegisthus' halls. He knew me at once, as soon as he drank the blood, and wailed out shrilly. Tears sprang to his eyes. He thrust his arms towards me, keen to embrace me there. No use. The great force was gone, the strength lost forever. Now that filled his rippling limbs in the old days. I wept at the sight. My heart went out to the man. My words, too, in a winging flight of pity. Famous Atrides, Lord of men, Agamemnon, what fatal stroke of destiny brought you down? Wrecked in the ships when Lord Poseidon roused some punishing blast of storm winds, gust on gust? Or did ranks of enemies mow you down on land as you tried to raid and cut off herds and flocks, or fought to win their city, take their women? The field marshal's ghost replied at once. Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, mastermind of war, I was not wrecked in the ships when Lord Poseidon roused some punishing blast of storm winds, gust on gust, nor did ranks of enemies mow me down on land. Aegisthus hatched my doom and my destruction. He killed me, he, with my own accursed wife. He invited me to his palace, sat me down to feast, then cut me down as a man cuts down some ox at the trough. So I died. A wretched, ignominious death. And round me all my comrades killed, no mercy, one after another, just like white-tusked boars, butchered in some rich lord of power's halls, for a wedding, banquet, or groaning public feast. You in your day have witnessed hundreds slaughtered, killed in single combat, or killed in pitched battle, true. But if you'd laid eyes on this, it would have wrenched your heart. How we sprawled by the mixing bowl and loaded tables there throughout the palace, the whole floor awash with blood. But the death cry of Cassandra, ignominious, ignoble, brutal, awful, terrible. That's what ignominious is. ignominious, ignominious death. Someone check the bingo while I finish this bit. The death cry of Cassandra, Priam's daughter, the most pitiful thing I heard. My treacherous queen, Clytemnestra, killed her over my body. Yes, and I, lifting my fists, beat them down on the ground, dying, writhing around the sword. But she, that whore, she turned her back on me, well on my way to death. She even lacked the heart to seal my eyes with her hand or close my jaws. So, there's nothing more deadly, bestial, than a woman set on works like these. What a monstrous thing she plotted. Slaughtered her own lawful husband. Why, I expected at least some welcome home from all my children, all my household slaves when I came sailing back again. But she, the queen hell-bent on outrage, bathes in shame not only herself but the whole breed of womankind, even the honest ones to come forever down the years. Oh, the gods didn't side with Medea after she killed her children. Also, this is the opinion of Agamemnon, not the opinion of the gods. And the gods weren't necessarily on Clytemnestra's side that much either. The gods didn't side with Medea after she killed her children. Medea didn't exactly live a happy life much longer. The slaughtering of her children is brutal and terrible. Clytemnestra killing her husband is brutal and terrible. It's all viewed badly. There is really no difference. And also, what you're hearing here is the opinion of Agamemnon. Agamemnon, he doesn't really count as an incel because he ain't an incel. He's not an involuntary celibate. He even says, like, the worst thing he heard was the fact that his wife went and speared Cassandra, like, drove the sword through her and through him at the same time. Is the Red Wedding inspired from this? No, it's not. It's inspired by something else in medieval history. Ignominia from igno and not and nomen. Yeah, Agamemnon's not an impartial source. He's obviously upset that he was murdered. And he's angry at his wife for getting wrapped up in Aegisthus' schemes. At the end of the day, pretty much all of them ultimately place the blame at Aegisthus' feet. Is Agamemnon saying this to juxtapose Clytemnestra with Penelope? So while Agamemnon doesn't know what's going on with Penelope, this is definitely being set up to eventually draw a clear contrast with Penelope, who's noted for having stayed loyal and basically never holding out and all of that. So we are getting a very clear, stark contrast. It's also enough that it would scare the shit out of Odysseus. Like, he's shocked Agamemnon's dead. Like, he can't believe Agamemnon. And that's why he asked, he's like, how did you die? Did your ship fall over? Did you try and sack a place and they killed you? Like, hearing that it is, my wife cheated on me and she and her lover murdered me and all of my other men when I came home, and my children weren't there, because the fact that his children kind of aren't there is part of the whole thing. Is Aegisthus basically chases them out and Clytemnestra allows him. So it's like, it's not even, yeah, the gods need to step in. Again, this is a bloodline. It's also why Anticlea mentions Penelope so much before that, is we are then putting in here a stark contrast to Penelope, and Odysseus would be like, whoa, what happened? Like, to him, this is shocking. It would give him some anxiety, though he is also being told, like, there's no way, and he's got this belief in Penelope, but we are drawing a stark contrast. And, but yeah, so that's part of the curse of the House of Atreus, is this bloodline is ultimately, by the end, just sort of consuming itself. Agamemnon isn't subtly trying to say Penelope will do this to you. He's more kind of raging, like, how could a woman, a daughter of Tyndareus, who's like, would have been an extremely eligible match, if you will. It's a powerful match that he made. This woman, is a sister of Helen, is said to have been, raised all the right ways. Similarly, in the court similar to Penelope, he was like, how did that happen? Um, and like he's kind of raging just at this point, that he's essentially in shock at what happened. Yeah, so the man is worried. If you consider, Tiresias just said, if your men eat the Helios' cows, you're going to come home late and find your house besieged and all sorts of shit going on. So this is adding the existential dread to what's going on. He's being presented with all these different things that could happen. Because again, the whole thing with Agamemnon is he is so surprised that that Agamemnon's even there. Like, he would not have known that Agamemnon had been killed at this point. Like, he's like, I just fucking saw you when we left Troy. What the fuck? Agamemnon, like the leader of the host of all these armies, really the greatest king, the king of the most powerful city-state, or, you know, kingdom in all of, you know, the Hellenes at that point. Like, this throws him for a loop, this whole meeting with Agamemnon. And it sets a note of anxiety and puts him on edge in a way that, like, is just building and building in, like, the need and desire to get home. This is just adding to that, like, gotta get home, gotta get home, gotta get home. And then adds to the, when everything then goes wrong, he's like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. Yeah, Odysseus, just apparently you're not stressed enough. So he declared, and I cried out, how terrible! Zeus, from the very start, the Thunder King has hated the race of Atreus with a vengeance. His trustiest weapon, women's twisted wiles. What armies of us died for the sake of Helen? Clytemnestra schemed your death while you were worlds away. True, true. Agamemnon's ghost kept pressing on. Is that why he doesn't reveal himself to her later? Yes. Yes, this is part of why he really maintains the illusion until all the other suitors are dead. Although, by the time he meets her, he's pretty certain we're okay, but he's still got that last little kernel of, I gotta suss my own wife out. Yeah, he's hated the house of Atreus with a vengeance. And not without reason, my guy. Y'all are messy as fuck. True, true. Agamemnon's ghost kept pressing on. So even your own wife, never indulge her too far. Never reveal the whole truth, whatever you may know. Just tell her a part of it. Be sure to hide the rest. Not that you, Odysseus, will be murdered by your wife. She's much too steady in her her feelings run too deep. Icarius' daughter Penelope, that wise woman. She was a young bride, I well remember. We left her behind when we went off to war. With an infant boy she nestled at her breast. That boy must sit and be counted with the men now. Happy man. His beloved father will come sailing home and see his son, and he will embrace his father. That is only right. Here, Agamemnon, like, musing on these things that he thought was going to happen and he didn't get to have. He's like, you're going to come to a happy homecoming. Is like, in his mind, he's like, oh, of course. I mean, that's who you have. I mean, for really Agamemnon, part of why he's also saying is, like, your son. He says, like, I thought I'd be greeted by my children. His children weren't even there to greet him. And is like, my children. Oh boy. Olbios? It's a Greek word. Explain, Mariana, please. Explain. Nepios, Olbios at the beginning. Ah! How are you so clever? Nepios, for those you don't know, you can go back to the Book 9 book club where we talked about Nepios with regard to Polyphemus and Odysseus and their conversations. I love it. I love it. I love it. But my wife, she never even let me feast my eyes on my own son. She killed me first, his father. I tell you this, bear it in mind, you must. When you reach your homeland, steer your ship into port in secret, never out in the open. The time for trusting women's gone forever. Enough! Come, tell me this and be precise. Have you heard news of my son? Where's he living now? Perhaps in Orchomenos? Perhaps in Sandy Pylos? Or off in the Spartan plains with Menelaus? He's not dead yet, my Prince Orestes. No, he's somewhere on the earth. So he probed, but I cut it short. Atrides, why ask me that? I know nothing, whether he's dead or alive. It's wrong to lead you on with idle words. So we stood there, trading heartsick stories, deep in grief, as the tears streamed down our faces. But now there came the ghosts of Peleus' son Achilles, Patroclus, fearless Antilochus, and great Ajax too, the first in stature, first in build and bearing of all the Argives after Peleus' matchless son. The ghost of the splendid runner knew me at once, and hailed me with a flight of mournful questions. Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, man of tactics, reckless friend, what next? Do the dead ones feel how much time has passed? How much time? No. A sense of time passing? No. They can recognize when someone has or hasn't made it to the underworld because they might have met them. Time passing? I mean, the sun neither rises nor sets in the underworld. Time sort of almost has no meaning at this point. Do we know what did happen to the sun? Oh, Orestes. Orestes has his own full fucking adventures. Oh my god. So Orestes does avenge the death of his father. He murders his mother Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus. But the sin of matricide means that he has to end up getting cleansed. He ends up finding his way to Athens, where they basically go through the invention of the jury system and trial by jury in Athens. If you want to know that story, it's the Oresteia. It is by the playwright Aeschylus. So the first one, Agamemnon, is about the death of Agamemnon, and then you have the libation bearers and the Eumenides, and that's kind of about the aftermath. He does eventually end up marrying his cousin Hermione, who is the daughter of Menelaus and Helen, which has him kind of coming into quarrel often with Neoptolemus, and that's sort of it. That's really all we know about them beyond that. Yes, we do start the Odyssey referring to this story. It is true. It's part of why, even though everybody got, had lots of opinions about it, it's why I kept mentioning Agamemnon while listening to Epic, because the story of Agamemnon is constantly referenced through the Odyssey, because the parallel is on purpose, or the contrast is on purpose. What great feat can that cunning head contrive? What daring brought you down to the house of death, where the senseless burnt-out wraiths of mortals make their home? The voice of his spirit paused, and I was quick to answer. Achilles, son of Peleus, greatest of the Achaeans, I had to consult with Tiresias, driven here by hopes he would help me journey home to rocky Ithaca. Never yet have I neared Achaea, never once set foot on native ground. My life is endless trouble. No one does circular storytelling like the Greeks. It is so true. Come here, Mama. Peg. Peggle wiggle. Come here. Come here. You stay down there? You want to come uppies? Come uppies. Yeah, there we go. You gonna sit here? Hi. Yeah, I know. Wanna relax? Oh, are we gonna snuggle? Oh, that is my bladder, but thank you, Peg. Thank you. Can I help you? She's very confused. Oh, God. I know what she wants. Is that what you want? Is this what we need? It's going to be very hard for me to read the chat if I sit like this. I know. I'm so sorry, of course.
I must pretend to have a blanket. How dare you have to sit on my fleece? There.
Okay. She wishes to give healing snorts, it's true. So now I need to move this over so I can see the chat out of the corner of my eye. Achilles not with the other heroes, with the normal dead. He's basically come out to, the blood has kind of called to him. Great Pegamedes, master of war snorts, devourer of carrots, we bow, eternally grateful for the blessing of your presence. It's true, the bladder is the Frenchie's favorite throne. Odysseus uses the same verb as Agamemnon did in the Iliad to describe how Achilles has command over everyone. Kratein. If she knocked over the computer, you'd have heard me swear very loudly. But you, Achilles, there's not a man in the world more blessed than you. Never has been, never will be one. Time was when you were alive, we Argives honored you as a god. And now, down here, I see you lord it over the dead in all your power. So grieve no more at dying, great Achilles. Thought Homer doesn't divide Hades between Elysium and other types as they come later. Am I wrong? No, he describes Elysium. I believe it's mentioned more in the Iliad than it is more in the Odyssey. Why are Odysseus and Achilles so friendly civil here? Didn't they have some kind of conflict back in Troy? Well, yeah, at some point they had conflict. It was a 10-year siege. For all we know, that conflict was in year 5, and they got over it by the time they got to year 10 when Achilles died. Remember, Achilles dies in the final year, right before they do the Trojan horse shit. So, yeah, you could have beef, but theirs apparently was minor enough that only Homer has referenced it vaguely. No one knows what it is. None of them. Tea that has never been properly spilled, and they apparently got over it. Unlike the beef with him and greater Ajax, which we shall see. Ajax is not over. Do you think I could punch Ghost Achilles? No, sadly it would go through him, but, I mean, worth it. I reassured the ghost, but he broke out. No winning words about death to me, shining Odysseus. My God, I'd rather slave on earth for another man, some dirt-poor tenant farmer who scrapes to keep alive, than rule down here over all the breathless dead. Which is a huge contrast to him in the Iliad, where it was all about the Kleos. He's basically saying, I would rather be a fucking nobody, have no Kleos, and be alive than be dead with all of my Kleos. It's really interesting when you consider the whole arc of his journey as this idea of, like, you can get everything you want and still not be fucking happy. That's kind of Achilles. He gets everything he wants, everything he chases after, and he knows exactly how it's going to end. It's really interesting. Huh, wait though. Oh, Mariana, is there something interesting in the Greek? This is his mortal shadow. Yeah, it's his shade. Well, whether or not he becomes a cult hero doesn't mean he's officially deified. And at this point, the idea of him being immortal except for his heel doesn't exist. So it's the human Achilles form. Do we have a story where he is properly deified in the way that Heracles is? Because Heracles and Diomedes are the only two I know of who get properly in myth deified. Becoming a cult hero being something completely different. Was there something like a sports competition version of a duel where you would compete with each other to restore honor in patch-up fights? Probably. Achilles, Ghost War knowing he will die with his honor. Now knowing the consequences, regrets. Actions meet consequence, basically. Yeah, now we have the Roman sources messing with things square. Because a lot of that idea of the, immortal except for his heel comes from, is it called the Achilleid? Did I remember that right? It's a Roman epic. But at this point, he's just a dude who's a really great warrior and a runner and all that, but he's fully mortal. Bingo, oh my god.
Peg.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Achilleid. For real this time.
Will you at least drink some water? Do you want another carrot? Or are you comfy?
We'll hold off on it, because she's kind of comfy right now. She's resting on the, not quite as cold, ice pack that's under this blanket. Athena coin bingo achieved. Although I will say, Mariana, I'm hoping you're looking at this to correct me if I'm wrong, because as far as I know in myth, we don't have a myth, at least a Greek myth, of the idea of him ascending to the Theoi in the way that Heracles does. Versus, again, I know the Achilleid has all that shit later. But even then, I don't think he ascends up to the Theoi. Versus them being worshipped as called heroes, which is different. Like, I think in terms of in mythology, where in myth they are actually made one of the Theoi in the way that Heracles and in some, at least one source, Diomedes sort of gets that as well. Peg is very content. She's, oh, I know, I'm sorry, I said your name and woke you up. Yeah, the Achilleid is kind of left to finish. Anyway, leaving the, anyway. We have here Achilles basically doing the get everything you wanted. Still upset about it. The sulk of Achilles continues. It is, however, a really interesting contrast when you look at how his journey as a hero in the Iliad. Yeah, he stays at hero cult level, but he still escapes Hades, at least in part. Well, he's in Hades here. This is probably going to require me to go read Nadja over. Friend of the show. Hold on. Hold, please. Yes, I know, Heracles. Thank you. I don't need the thing on Total Recall. Do you know how depressing it is to be dead? Basically. A Poetics of Lament. There are all these extra chapters on Achilles that I have not gone deeply enough into. I am not looking... When mortals become... Okay, maybe it's in here. The idea of the death of a bridegroom. Hold on, please, while I skim this. Fairies. Going on about Sappho. The exegesis, okay. Neon Corticus. Okay. Oh my god. Epiphany and death. Patroclus. The Iliad has the bridegroom. Never mind, certified. Oh my gosh. Okay, nope, there's too much in here for me to try and get it. This is a question for a later day. Sorry. Can't work on my tan if there's no sun. It's true, I know. How does not... I know. Yeah, Achilles. Like, seriously, 0 out of... Frankly, Achilles is a person 0 out of 10 would not recommend. I said what I said. I said what I said. But come, tell me the news about my gallant son. Did he make his way to the wars? Did the boy become a champion? Yes or no? Tell me of noble Peleus, any word you've heard, still holding the pride of place among his Myrmidon hordes, or do they despise the man in Hellas and in Thea, because old age has lamed his arms and legs? For I no longer stand in the light of day, the man I was. Comrade in arms to help my father, as once I helped our armies, killing the best fighters Troy could wield in the wide world up there. Oh, to arrive at father's house, the man I was for one brief day. I'd make my fury and my hands, invincible hands, a thing of terror to all those men who abuse the king with force and wrest away his honor. Yeah, Achilles, basically forever an immature shithead. It's fine. So he grieved. But I tried to lend him heart. About noble Peleus, I can tell you nothing. But about your own dear son, Neoptolemus, I can report the whole story. As you wish. I myself, in my trim ship, I brought him out of Skyros to join the Argives under arms, and dug in around Troy, debating battle tactics. He always spoke up first, and always on the mark. Godlike Nestor and I alone excelled the boy. Yes, and when our armies fought on the plain of Troy, he'd never hang back with the main force of men. He'd always charge ahead, giving ground to no one in his fury. And scores of men he killed in bloody combat. How could I list them all, name them all now? The fighting ranks he leveled, battling for the Argives. But what a soldier he laid low with a bronze sword. The hero Eurypylus, Telephus' son, and round him troops of his own Cataean comrades slaughtered, lured to war by the bribe his mother took. The only man I saw put Eurypylus in the shade was Memnon, son of the morning. Again, when our champions climbed inside the horse that Epeus built with labor, and I held full command to spring our packed ambush open or keep it sealed, all our lords and captains were wiping off their tears, knees shaking beneath each man. But not your son. Never once did I see his glowing skin go pale. He never flicked a tear from his cheeks, no. He kept on begging me there to let him burst from the horse, kept gripping his hilted sword, his heavy bronze-tipped javelin, keen to loose his fighting fury against the Trojans. Then, once we'd sacked King Priam's craggy city, laden with his fair share and princely prize, he boarded his own ship, his body all unscarred, not a wound from a flying spear or a sharp sword, cut and thrust close up. The common marks of war. Random, raging Ares plays no favorites. So I said, and off he went, the ghost of the great oner, Iacusis' grandson, loping with long strides across the fields of Asphodel, triumphant in all I had told him of his son, his gallant, glorious son. So like, did my son carry on the fucking name? Good, I can go now. And be second best to Heracles, who's not even Heracles, because Heracles is up with the gods. Me. Sorry, I like to shit on Achilles because I think he's an asshole. Because he is. It's fine. Now the rest of the ghosts, the dead and gone, came swarming up around me, deep in sorrow there, each asking about the grief that touched him most. Only the ghost of great Ajax, son of Telamon, kept his distance, blazing with anger at me still. For the victory I had won by the ships that time, I pressed my claim for the arms of Prince Achilles. He's an asshole. Oh, I don't love him. Sergio, you can love him. I don't love Achilles. His queenly mother had set them up as prizes. Pallas and captive Trojans served as judges. Pallas not being Pallas, the friend of Athena. Pallas is a prince of Troy. Do you know what happened with Neo after all this? Did he get his own epic? Yeah, no. He came back with Andromache as his war prize. He was initially married to Hermione, and then he got killed one of two ways. He also dies quite young. He gets real mad at Apollo for helping Paris to slay Achilles. And decides to basically go fight Apollo and rolls up to like Delphi. And he's either, in one version he's killed by a priest at Delphi, or in another he's killed by Orestes, actually. So, yeah, no, it really doesn't end well for him. Achilles is not my favorite war criminal. He's a sulking, immature twat, in my opinion. But that's okay. We all have our favorite and least favorite war criminals. He's certainly not my favorite. Apollo, you catch the sun? Catch these hands! Well, he doesn't really catch the sun. It's like, Apollo, oh really? Catch these hands. It's like, okay, buddy. All right. Would to God I'd never won such trophies. All for them the earth closed over Ajax. That proud hero, Ajax. So, Ajax, greater Ajax, Telamonian Ajax, as they say, son of Telamon. He erases himself out of the narrative after the funeral games for Achilles. Just they note was hosted by Achilles' mother, the scene of Thetis, and one of the prizes up was the new bespoke Hephaestus-made armor. Like, it wasn't just the OG armor. That was done at the funeral games for Patroclus. This is the bespoke Hephaestus actual fucking plot armor. And what happens is they're sort of tied, and it's up to the judge of the contest to essentially choose who they go to. And they choose Odysseus over Ajax. And it's... The interesting thing is a lot of us might sit there and go, oh my god, it's armor. Like, dude, get over it. Like, it's just armor. It's fine. But this is different. Like, remember, we've been sieging this city. If we want to talk about the idea of, like, the effect of the Trojan War on these heroes, 10 years they've been at war. Ajax, truly, yeah, they put Achilles as the greatest of all of them. Ajax, right under. Ajax and Diomedes, greater Ajax and Diomedes, right under. Like, they're tied right under Achilles. That's how good they were. Like, that is how good they were. And the fact that the judges then said, we're going to give this incredible prize. Yes, Mary, I saw your reference. I chose to not acknowledge it. Yes, we burn all the letters. The fact that they choose Odysseus over him, it is so insulting to him. For him, it is such a slight upon his honor. Because then he looks at it like, so this is how you view me? This is how you view me. And everything that I've done. All of my kleos, my glory, my fame. And then also, it's just like, imagine that you are Telamonian Ajax. Like, one of the dudes. One of the greatest heroes living. You have battered and bashed at these walls of Troy for 10 years. You've done everything. You've really, in terms of trying to be a Greek hero, done everything right, if you will. You've done it. You've taken what the Trojans could throw at you. You've taken what the gods have thrown at you. You've taken what the Greeks have thrown at you time and time and time again. And this is the thing that ultimately kind of breaks him. Is that, like, this is the thing that breaks Ajax. And it's like, you essentially watch it, like, and this is the thing where, again, Odysseus doesn't really see that because obviously we're in right now Odysseus's perspective is he's thinking he's mad at me about the armor. And while that's definitely part of it, it's so much more than the armor, right? Like, it's about so much more than that. And that's, like, for me, that's the tragedy of Greater Ajax is you're just like, this was one of those guys where he took what they threw at him time and again, did not break, did not bend, did not flinch. And there was a point where even he hit a breaking point. And he sent him, as they said, he sent himself down to Hades. And there's such a tragedy to that. Like, all of these great heroes die as a result of Troy. And there's such a sadness to that. And yes, I saw all of the singing, but if I acknowledged it in that moment, I would have lost track of my thoughts. Yeah, dude shirtless protected the ships on his own. If you want to know the reference to that, it's an image by Peter Connolly, where he depicts Ajax as wearing, like, he's shirtless. That man said, for war, ready. Tits out. Thighs out. Armor optional. Would this be a most Greeks would agree with Ajax situation, or would it be mixed? It'd be kind of mixed. I think they would just see it as, like, kind of sad. Overall, it's sad that they would have, and, like, troubling to them that they lost Ajax. They had not yet sacked Troy. That's a real loss for them. To them, like, losing any hero would have been sad. That would have been sad. Yes, Peter Connolly, our goat, our beloved. For those who don't know who I've mentioned, Peter Connolly, may he rest in peace, late, great Peter Connolly, one of, if not the greatest historical illustrator for ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and through all the different periods. His stuff on Bronze Age Greece, especially when he talks about, like, the time of the Iliad and the Odyssey, is so good. He'll give you accurate Bronze Age armor, costuming for men and women, their hairstyles. It's really cool. I heard they even debated whether or not to give him a hero's funeral because of Ajax choosing death, but he got it in the end thanks to his brother. That one I don't know precisely. I don't know that bit, but it would put them in a bit of a pickle. I know there's that play by Sophocles. So I was like, I don't think it's in there. Plunges in a little Iliad. He goes mad with grief. I don't know that bit. I was gonna say, Nam, B&B. I don't know where that came from. So I was gonna say that didn't sound too familiar for me from what sources I've read, and what I can recall. Now, if Mariana knows the answer to that, rock on. Or if this is a thing where we once again blame the Romans. I don't know that bit about the brother. I haven't heard that bit. Because this could be Sophocles' play, which I haven't read in a while. I'd have to go back and read Sophocles. I'm trying to guess. Oh, Mariana, we're talking about the death of Ajax. There's a question you up see by Nambin. It says the heroes basically debated whether or not to give Ajax a hero's funeral because he chose death, but in the end he got it thanks to his brother. And I'm like, I don't remember that, but is that from the Sophocles play Ajax? I remember the whole thing is that when he dies, that's where you get I'm pretty sure that's the story where you get, or maybe that's Pausanias, where it's like the hyacinth comes from his blood. So Mariana, do you know or remember this bit? The idea that like they didn't know whether or not to give Ajax like a hero's funeral. Yep. Is that in the Sophocles play where they're not sure about it? I haven't read it in so long. I only remember bits and pieces of it. I see yep, but I can't tell what you're saying yep to. This is the one problem of a text chat. How can you find the illustrations? Oh, here, I will spell him for you. There's an argument between Tristan. Okay. So Jesse, that's the name, Peter Connolly. If you're in the Discord, we've definitely posted some of his illustrations before, including that one of him shirtless. But if you look at Peter Connolly and type in like Iliad or Odyssey, you'll get a ton of his illustrations. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. So that is in the Sophocles play. Okay. So now B&B, it's been a long time. Sophocles, admittedly, is probably the tragedian I've reread the least amount of times. Nobody come for me. Not that I don't like him. I just tend to end up rereading Aeschylus and Euripides more. So, yeah, there's an argument between Teucer, who's his half-brother. And Teucer ends up, if I recall, getting in some shit with Telamon kind of later. Because he comes back and he doesn't bring back Ajax's body, but it's like, okay, but they did all the rites over there. Come on. He also doesn't bring back any like famous weaponry. This is all like spoils of war kind of shit. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so Jesse, if you are in the Discord, we have a particular thread in the Odyssey book club section that's called Library of Alexandria, and Book Dragon did a really wonderful bit where they found the internet archive of all of Peter Connolly's works because his illustrations are fabulous. And the Discord link, yes, is pinned in the chat if you are not there. Also, yes, thank you, Mariana, for clarifying that that's in the Ajax play. I really need to reread Ajax. I need to reread Sophocles. Y'all are catching me with like my Sophocles pants around my ankles. It is true. I'm a bad rereader of the plays, and even more so of Sophocles. I don't know why. I just always end up rereading Aeschylus probably the most, but then like bits of Euripides. Oh. But yes, that is part of it, because part of the thing is when Ajax, like, if I recall, like, realizes sort of what he's done, he's like, oh god, have I, like, tainted my own honor by doing this? It's a whole thing. I really should reread that play. It's a great play. It's probably one of the ones I like more by Sophocles. Anyway, sorry, you're getting, oh god, the neurospicy coming out again. Coming out again. Peg is always displeased with me, let's be real. But yes, here we go. Ajax. My mans. I cried out to him now. I tried to win him over. Ajax, son of noble Telamon, still determined, even in death, not once to forget that rage you train on me for those accursed arms. The gods set up that prize to plague the Achaeans. So great a tower of strength we lost when you went down. For your death we grieved as we did for Achilles' death. We grieved incessantly, true, and none's to blame but Zeus, who hated Achaea's fighting spearmen so intensely. Zeus sealed your doom. Come closer, king, and listen to my story. Conquer your rage, your blazing headstrong pride. So I cried out. But Ajax answered not a word. He stalked off toward Erebus, into the dark, to join the other lost, departed dead. Yet now, despite his anger, he might have spoken to me, or I to him, but the heart inside me stirred with some desire to see the ghosts of others dead and gone. So, no closure for Ajax and Odysseus. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, you can get lost in the Discord. We're a bit of a crazy place. Mary did write a wonderful user guide, basically, for the Discord. Yeah, I know, Agnes. It's sad face. Man, Ajax always guts me. Ajax is one of my fave Greek war criminals. And so I'm like, oh, no, not Telamonian Ajax. Oh, it hurts me. I always feel the hurt for that. Because I think you can hear, like, the desperateness in Odysseus, where it's like he's even getting frustrated and he's just like, please talk to me. And it's just, my dumpster firemen, I love them too much. And I saw Minos there, illustrious son of Zeus, firmly enthroned, holding his golden scepter, judging all the dead, some on their feet, some seated, all clustering round the king of justice, pleading for his verdicts, reached in the house of death with its all-embracing gates. For those who want to remember about Minos and the whole judges of the underworld, go back to, I want to say it is book 7. One of the books on the Isles of the Phaeacians, we were talking about Rhadamanthus, because he got mentioned, I think it is book 7. And we talked also about Minos and the other judges of the dead. But Minos, yes, king of Crete, the stepfather of the Minotaur. Sniff the ether is who it is? I next caught sight of Orion, that huge hunter, rounding up on the fields of Asphodel those wild beasts. The man in life cut down on the lonely mountain slopes, brandishing in his hands the bronze-studded club that time can never shatter. Again, we talked about Orion in book 5 of the Odyssey, because we had mentioned him there, mostly his constellation. A lot of these, again, we're playing the game of, so see all the dead people from Greek myth, and some of these people we have talked about, which is why I'm saying just sort of like CF where we already talked about them. I saw Tityus, I think. Tityus. Tityus? I'm gonna go with Tityus. I saw Tityus too, son of the mighty goddess Earth, sprawling there on the ground. Oh yeah, Tityus. We talked about him too, in the same book where we talked about Rhadamanthus. My bad, I should have remembered this guy. Yay. Son of the mighty goddess Earth, sprawling there on the ground, spread over 9 acres, 2 vultures hunched on either side of him, digging into his liver, beaking deep in the blood sac, and he with his frantic hands could never beat them off, for he had once dragged off the famous consort of Zeus in all her glory, Leto, threading her way toward Pythos Ridge, over the lovely dancing rings of Panopeus. So we're talking here, we are looking at Titius. I'm going with Titius. And here we are seeing people who are being punished in Tartarus. We're seeing the punishments, because we're going to talk about a couple of them now, too. And I saw Tantalus, too, bearing endless torture. He stood... Yeah, blood sac for the liver, huh? Well, they talked about digging into his liver, beaking deep in the blood sac. Yeah, Zeus does kind of have a thing about birds eating livers. So we already mentioned it and called it a liver. I think he was furthering the description on it being a blood sac, which, you know, quite an image. I don't know if this quite meets level of freaky egg balloon, but that do be something. Stepfather. He was the stepfather of the Minotaur. I'm just saying. That's what he was. It's awkward. I saw Tantalus too, bearing endless torture. He stood erect in a pool as the water lapped his chin, parched. He tried to drink, but he could not reach the surface. No. Time and again the old man stooped, craving a sip. Time and again the water vanished, swallowed down, laying bare the caked black earth at his feet. Some spirit drank it dry. Oh no, Tantalus. Boo-hoo. Oh, we're not talking about Prometheus here. This is Titius. We're okay with him, you know, getting this one. And over his head, leafy trees dangled their fruit from high aloft, pomegranates and pears and apples glowing red, succulent figs and olives swelling sleek and dark. But as soon as the old man would strain to clutch them fast, a gust would toss them up to the lowering dark clouds. And I saw Sisyphus, too, bound to his own torture, grappling his monstrous boulder with both arms working, heaving, hands struggling, legs driving. He kept on thrusting the rock uphill toward the brink, but just as it teetered, set to topple over, time and time again, the immense weight of the thing would wheel it back, and the ruthless boulder would bound and tumble down to the plain again. So once again he would heave, would struggle to thrust it up, sweat drenching his body, dust swirling above his head. And next, I caught a glimpse of powerful Heracles, his ghost, I mean. The man himself delights in the grand feasts of the deathless gods on high, wed to Hebe, famed for her lithe, alluring ankles, the daughter of mighty Zeus and Hera shod in gold. Okay, Mariana, this is where I wanted to say, when you were talking about with Achilles, the idea, oh, it's his mortal shade. I'm like, okay, but Heracles, we make a point of saying, oh, this is just Heracles' ghost, because the man himself delights, but we never mention that for any of the other dead heroes. We don't mention it for Agamemnon. We don't mention it for Achilles. That's why I'm like, he doesn't get deified the way Heracles does. He does get worshipped as a cult hero, make no mistake. A lot of these heroes do. The idea of the cult hero or the hero cults and whatever are very common. But this is where, Mariana, this is where I was like, this is why I was niggling slightly with what you were saying and why I was like, wait, but. Anywho, sorry. That's my ADHD tangent. Around him, cries of the dead rang out like cries of birds, scattering left and right in horror as on he came like night, naked bow in his grip, an arrow grooved on the bowstring, glaring around him fiercely, forever poised to shoot. A terror, too, that sword belt sweeping across his chest, a baldric of solid gold emblazoned with awesome work, bears and ramping boars and lions with wild, fiery eyes. Aw, thank you, Clover. Which time did I put myself down? I do this too often. Oh, is this about me saying, like, I'm a bad classicist, I need to read more Sophocles? Thank you, Clover. Oh, and also I feel that on getting character limits down. Wow, do I feel that. I feel that so hard. Me forever fighting character limits is real. Or time limits, as I found with YouTube Shorts. You only get 3 minutes, and I was like, damn it. Thank you, Clover. That's so sweet. If you need to ask which time the answer is, you've done it too often. It's true. I constantly put myself down or laugh at myself. It's true. Lions with wild, fiery eyes, and wars, routs, and battles, massacres, butchered men. May the craftsman who forged that masterpiece, whose skills could conjure up a belt like that, never forge another. Like, damn. Heracles got that cool looking shit. As Orion, in a way, Nadia argues it's been more of a split for different sides for Dead Souls. Look at that. Yeah. Fair. I would say the biggest, so for those who don't know what I'm poking at Mariana at, is you're saying, oh, that, you know, the Achilles we see is just, oh, that's just the mortal shade. That's not like Achilles in the same way that we say, oh, this is Heracles, but the guy himself is up on Olympus. The difference, we're sort of splitting the difference here. We're splitting hairs very seriously here, so I have to say, very much splitting hairs. Is I'm saying, I'm splitting the hair of going, but Heracles is the guy. He is legitimately brought up to be one of the pair. It's why Homer makes the real distinction here about it. And versus you end up getting worshipped as a hero cult the way like Odysseus and Achilles and Patroclus and tons of these other heroes do kind of get worshipped again as hero cults. But the difference between that versus Heracles, the guy, who apparently got real good swag. Apparently this sword belt is so good that Odysseus hopes the guy who made it never made another. Like, nah, that's a one of a kind, that's bespoke. That should be so good, never make another. The argument is this is not the same Achilles seeking Cleos, like it's the mortal part and he has no idea. Okay, Mariana, I see. Oh, now I see what you're saying. I have read a bit of that involving Nadia. I'm so sorry. I'm taking it too literal. This is not the same Achilles. Yeah, the mortal part that has no idea left of Cleos. Yeah, because he's dead. So it's like, really, he should be wondering a bit about what's the story of me, which he sort of talks about, but like kind of in a slant way. Anyway, sorry, y'all. You're gonna the rabbit hole in real time is a rabbit hole, but also goes on side quests and tangents and around. It's less a rabbit hole in its own version of a labyrinth. Anyway, Heracles knew me at once, at first glance, and hailed me with a winging burst of pity. "Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, famed for exploits. Luckless man, you too, braving out a fate as harsh as the fate I bore alive in the light of day. Son of Zeus that I was, my torments never ended. Forced a slave for a man, not half the man I was. He saddled me with the worst heartbreaking labors. Why, he sent me down here once to retrieve the hound that guards the dead. No harder task for me, he thought. But I dragged the great beast up from the underworld to earth, and Hermes and gleaming-eyed Athena blazed the way." With that he turned, and back he went to the house of death. But I held fast in place, hoping that others might still come, shades of famous heroes, men who died in the old days, and ghosts of an even older age I longed to see. Theseus and Pirithous, the gods' own radiant sons. But before I could, the dead came surging round me, hordes of them, thousands raising unearthly cries. And blanching terror gripped me, panicked now that Queen Persephone might send up from death some monstrous head, some Gorgon's staring face. I rushed back to my ship, commanded all hands to take to the decks and cast off cables quickly. They swung aboard at once. They sat to the oars in ranks, and a strong tide of the ocean rivers swept her on downstream, sped by our rowing first. Then,
by a fresh, fair wind.
Sounds like Poseidon Poseidon. I mean, he's the guy. Like, I just imagine Heracles going, ah, shit, you too, man? I mean, because imagine Heracles' life. He's totally a bro. But, like, he's a good bro. We've done bros, like we did with, we did frat bros for the Phaeacian bros. He's just a bro. He's a bro. He's the guy. He's a bro. Different from the frat bros. But that is the end of Book 11. I know it was a long one. We did a tour of dead mythological characters. We got a little sneak peek of the underworld, but obviously we're not delving too deep into it because that would be a bad idea. Lord of the Brocian. Heracles sounds like Kronk. If I could do a good Kronk impression, I would maybe consider doing Heracles in the voice of Kronk, but I can't do I cannot do, man, I do not have a great Kronk impression. Yes, Heracles is a wholesome gym bro. That's exactly who Heracles is. And yeah, that was a long one. Holy crap. It's a pretty long book, but it's also just got a lot of stuff. You guys also asked many a question. But it's, I mean, technically, I don't even think it's the longest book that we've read. It's just got a lot in it because you just meet person after person after person after person. Like, to the point that even Odysseus at one point stops in the middle and goes like, maybe we should break for sleep. And the Phaeacians are like, bruh, keep telling the story. We did go down quite some rabbit holes. 640 verses. Yeah, it's long. I swear we've had a longer one, though. 600, I mean, it's pretty solid. I mean, book 4, at least English translation-wise, is nearly like 1,000. Is Hera the Yzma? I don't know. But yes, we had lots of lore dumps, lots of side quests and tangents and, you know, wondering who side players are. You got to meet the underworld. Are there... If anyone should be Kronk, it's Menelaus. Menelaus is my delightful himbo. Peg, do you want a carrot? Oh, she's napping. Are you sleeping? She's sleeping so soundly that didn't even wake her up. She didn't even twitch. She's tired. Right, the labors of Hera, the labors chosen specifically to please Hera, Hera's labors. Those labors. Yeah, book 4 is really long. I was gonna say, I'm like, this is definitely not the longest book we've had. But it's just got a lot of stuff going on. She is exhausted. It's kind of warm. Any questions related specifically to book 11, or even I'll open it up to books 1 to 11? That was good. Oh, thank you. I tried. I can get the cadence. I just never feel like the voice is right, because he is so much deeper than me. Oh, why he's called Lord. I've heard... Yeah, Persephone he is allowed to keep his gift of prophecy when dead. So that is pretty unique, which speaks to kind of his unique mortal life. He just was a really unique dude. Similarly to how, like, Rhadamanthus is seen as so freaking just. When he dies, he's one of the judges of the underworld. Every now and then, again, you get humans who are, like, so unique in at least a positive way that even in death, something's going to be done about it. So in his case, yeah, he gets to keep the gift of prophecy, but generally it's not going to serve anybody, because who's going to go down to the underworld? Oh my god, Agnes. Oh my god, Agnes, go get sleep. Go dream of your fix-it and Finimus fix. Why did Homer refer to Persephone by her name? Wasn't that a big... No, not at all. In fact, Homer in the Greek refers to Hades as well. Fagles chooses to use the phrase House of Death as opposed to House of Hades as a kind of translation quirk of his, probably going with the idea that generally you don't want to mention them. In this case, when you're telling a piece of epic poetry, it's different than if you're just like in conversation. You don't want to bring up a chthonic god and get their attention. But in fact, Homer does actually also refer to Hades by his name. Hades is named. It is the choice in the translation that Fagles does not name it. Persephone uses Tiresias to screen calls. Love it. Rhadamanthus, my goat. Is the underworld an endless place? I always imagine it gets super overcrowded after a while. Yeah, the underworld is essentially kind of ever expansive. Aww. Clover again? Clover, you're killing me in a good way. Thank you. And I'm really glad that you enjoy book club. That makes me pleased. Even if you hadn't caught up on the reading, I'm glad you could have fun and follow along. This one was it's a bit of a listicle kind of chapter, isn't it? So I guess that does make it easier. And you still had great questions, even if you were kind of doing them on the fly. I mean, because I know normally, so for those who don't know, Clover, our regular book club attender, Clover always is so good about reading ahead and will come with a whole docket of questions. Like, I've got questions, I've got someone to ask, I'm gonna ask them. So, like, you telling me, Clover, that, like, you weren't caught up on the reading and you still were pumping out some great questions, like, Clover, my dude, good job. I mean, especially, again, you got to ask that question being like, hey, why are we calling the sacrificed animals victims? And it's like, oh my god, rabbit hole to friend of the show. Yes. But, yes, sorry, continuing with Jesse's question. Yeah, the underworld sort of has, like, again, you consider you're out of the mortal realm, so the underworld is kind of endless, if you will. It never runs out of space. Let's put it that way. Clover the Clever. Yes, no, guys, Clover regularly. I haven't read past book 9. Oh, well, book 9 was the book where I'm like, all right, I'm breaking out my grandfather's book. I'm breaking out friend of the show. That one had just so much to try to talk about because you had like so much wordplay that you can't really convey in English, and so it was like so much to do. Book 10, yes, seriously. So, I mean, honestly, Clover, you still coming with the great questions on the fly is awesome, because I know you put time and thought into your questions. So the fact that you're doing them on the fly, I'm impressed, and that's great. Truly. Truly, truly. Clover the Clever is a perfect epithet. Clover's our question king. But yes, I was gonna say also for all the first timers who made it to their first live, I hope you had fun. I'm always chuffed to see like new people going like, I'm finally making a live, because we like have such a wild and weird time here. Did anyone in ancient Greece? Oh, the concept of reincarnation. Greeks did not have the idea. The ancient Greeks didn't really have that concept of reincarnation. You dead, you stay dead. I mean, again, unless you are like the guy, Heracles, and you get brought up to be one of the Theoi, yeah, but generally, you are dead dead. And that's it. You don't reincarnate. Is my epithet. Mary, I think you are Mary the Menace. I say with absolute love and affection, by the way. But yeah, Bruner, that's a good question. The Greeks are, because obviously, there were civilizations at the time that had this concept of reincarnation, I believe, at the time. Probably, I think, more Eastern cultures. And so, but yeah, no, Greece did not have a concept of reincarnation. It's true, menace is the term for a group of paganauts. Mary is just a group of paganauts in a trench coat. Oh, did Riordan do a reincarnation thing? Oh. Boo. Boo. I mean, I'm bad at thinking up epithets. Somebody would have to give you an epithet. I was going to say, Eastern countries I know had a lot of reincarnation. I know they do. Bronze Age, was that there? I don't know enough. That's kind of out of my depth. So that's why I say I think. Why does it mention Circe as goddess with lovely braids? Oh, okay, Akari. So lovely braids is not the first time we've heard that epithet, or it's not even really an epithet, a descriptor, really, if you will. We heard it for Calypso. We've heard it with others. It's essentially saying she's the girl with the gray hair. She's got gray hair. And braids were kind of the most common hairstyle among women, especially in the Bronze Age, was women would often have their hair in some form of braids. So basically, she's a girl with the good hair. She's looking fab. She's not the only one. Calypso gets called the nymph with lovely braids. It's just a common descriptor. Basically, Good hair. What? Riordan did... Okay. Damn you, friend. I know. Underworld being a thing that can be overcrowded. The Greeks never seem to put that up as any kind of potential issue. There never seems to be a space issue when it comes to the underworld. I know, I realized, okay, I'm not gonna lie, when I said girl with the great hair, I realized when I said it, the T was like not enunciated, so then I tried to say it again, and the same thing happened. I was like, why do I keep saying great? And it comes out like gray. Oh, okay, thank you so much. I truly do love this book club. And you guys in the chat, as much as I tease you and sometimes you pepper me with tons of questions and like my brain goes into mild overload, I still love it. Like, I love the curiosity. I love the desire to want to understand. Sometimes the directions your guys' brains go, it leaves me like kind of cocking my head, but still. What the Blessed Isle is like the VIP suite? What on earth is that? No, seriously, Riordan, what are you doing? I mean, honestly, Riordan wanting to play with the idea of like running out of space, the idea that there is a finite amount of space in the world, I do find like part of my brain goes, oh, that's sort of interesting, but the rest of it, no thanks. Okay, to be fair, I really don't have a beef with Riordan. Riordan is telling his own story. He's doing his own thing. Like, obviously, I didn't have strong opinions on it because I read the initial PJO series and I have zero memory of it, which means I didn't like it or love it. I also didn't hate it. It's just a thing that exists. Wilson, though, I got beef. She's my official just classicist nemesis. I have major beef. For those who've been in the Discord, you can witness and understand my beef. Oh my god, yeah, no, that does make it interesting when you consider Hades being like the World Wars. Free super chats? What? I don't think it's free. It says $3, but thank you, Soul. Yeah, you could say it's a problem for reincarnation when you say there's a lot more people going to be coming, which is sort of why the idea of that, like, the underworld doesn't really have, like, a confined space. Like, it does seem to just not have an issue of running out of space. It's just me, I'm soup. Ah, yes. The lyric videos. As if my backlog wasn't big enough. Do you know of any, like, traditional Greek needlework? I know Penelope was weaving, but I'm sure there are other needle arts women did back then. It was kind of like a tiny something. Beyond weaving, I don't know. And there are some people in the Discord, if you go into the section that's like, we like make stuff, there's definitely at least one person who is doing weaving in there. I think in a pretty traditional method. Beyond that, I honestly don't know enough about ancient Greek handicrafts. And beyond weaving what they did. I mean, again, specifically in the Bronze Age, even less. Going in further beyond that, I'm not entirely sure. There are some people who are into like needlework and those kind of handicrafts in the Discords. You can definitely find people who will know more about that than I do.